Hello everyone, let me just try and get everything working here because everything is going into, there's a little bit of a ridiculousness at the moment. So welcome one and all to Laurence Plays, and I'm going to be doing something a little bit different today. As I said in the description of the video and so on, I've got a little bit behind in production of videos at the moment because I had a very busy week last week and it's been ridiculously hot around here, and that has not been conducive to me actually getting this done. Also, I've been out having fun as well, so you know it's partly self-inflicted as well. But things have been happening, and so I'm going to spend this stream trying to put together a couple of videos that will be released later this week for supporters and next week for non-supporters, and we'll see how we get on with that, and if and hopefully that'll allow me to catch up a little bit. So hello Doopy, hello NerdGuard. At the moment I've got the view set up so you can see my video editing software across the bottom two screens here, and a spare one up at the top here which I shall use for other things as well, no doubt, as I get along. It is indeed very hot indeed. You can probably hear my air conditioning unit. I apologise for that, but given that it's still 32 degrees in here, that is, I've knocked a degree off the temperature already with that having that running, but it's still very hot. So yeah, I'll do what I can to sort of try and keep the noise down. Once the temperature drops a bit, then I'll probably turn it off. But at the moment, I am absolutely sweltering, I'm afraid. So I think I'm going to leave that running for a little bit longer. Right. Yes, indeed, sausage making stream. Exactly. We shall look into how the sausage is made and how I pull together all of the all the nonsense wonderful content I keep sticking on YouTube for you all to see. So, he says prevaricating ever so slightly while he waits for his computer to catch up a bit. So this is a video. This is a video that went out last week that have finished editing. So this is a complete one. I don't need to do anything with this one, and that's good and ready to go. However, I do need to start recording number 2. So the way I'm producing videos these days has changed a little bit. I used to just open up Factorio with wherever we got to with the current save. I'd have a list of things that people had done, and then I'd just sort of have a bit of a look around and talk about whatever I was seeing. So it's all over the place. Oh, okay. I pulled the microphone a little bit closer to my face, so apparently that's helped. Awesome. I'm glad that's made it better. Yeah, so I would open up Factorio, I would just start playing, or I'd have the game open, I would just start talking, and that would be, ideally, that would get me some worthwhile content that I could then use to actually turn into a video. More recently, since about somewhere on Pelagos, basically, I've started actually scripting them a little bit better. So now I spent some time yesterday writing a couple of scripts because that part would not be remotely interesting to watch. That would be very dull watching me sort of staring at various lists in the game and trying to putting words together. So I sort of skipped past that bit. I've got a couple of scripts ready, so my plan is to load up Factorio, start recording, take a recording of, basically to go with the script, which means I will look at I will read through the script as I go and move things around on screen to try and focus on whatever the script is talking about. Then I'll actually record the audio for the script, so just reading it, and at that point I'm afraid I will stop responding to comments for about 10 or 12 minutes, but never mind. Hopefully I'll have plenty to say during that time at least, and then after that I will start doing the editing and start putting the video together, and going through lining the two up, lining the voiceover up with the actual video, and then putting in any overlays and yada, all of that sort of stuff. So the first part will look a lot like me just playing Factorio. The second part will sound a lot like me doing a video, and then we'll get into the actual editing part after that. Okay, so let's get on with that. I will unfull screen that because I am going to need a copy of Factorio open in order to make recordings of it. I'm also going to need to have a second copy of OBS open. I believe OBS can do 2 different things at once if you have it open twice, but it will complain a little bit when you open it. So I'll slap down all those complaints. This is going to be a very off-the-cuff stream. I'm not going to be able to predict anything that's going on. It's just going to sort of happen as I'm doing things, and hopefully it'll be interesting, and you get a nice early preview of the videos, a sight into what goes on with the process. And to be honest, if you want to ask any questions while I'm going along, most of the time I'm going to be able to happily talk. Okay, Steam's updating itself. We'll get there in a moment. I'll be able to yeah, I'll be able to talk about whatever I'm doing, answer any questions you've got about the games or about the channel or any of that sort of thing. At least most of the time. So I suspect it'll probably mean it'll take me slightly longer to make a video than it normally would. Thank you, Doopy. Do you recognise them? That's the question. Yeah, it'll probably take slightly longer to make a video, but who cares? That doesn't matter. It's as long as it's providing some nice entertainment for you guys. That's the important thing. So we will spend a few minutes waiting for Factorio to load. In fact, while it's loading, let's open OBS up again as well. Launch anyway, even though it's already running. Okay, they are the covers from the Stormlight Archive books by Brandon Sanderson. So that one you can see there is the first book and part of the second book. The one you saw before on the main monitor, which you're seeing as bottom left, is the other half of the second book and the third book, I think, and then there's some of the third book and the fourth book on the final screen. And then the one up in the top left is it's not an entirely lore accurate view, but it's a couple of the major locations from the book series in the same, put together as one image. But I'm going to bring this down here for the time being so I can see it a bit more easily. Right. So this is based on Stream 49, so if I open up the appropriate save file, which is that one, we've tweaked the mods a little bit since then, but that's fine, it doesn't matter, it's not going to break anything. Right, and then I want scene collection, I want to be doing recording, and we've got microphone sound, okay, we will hopefully have game sound, we'll see how that happens once the game's actually loaded. Oh, I'll give you guys game sound as well, because, you know, might as well. Took that over to there, we can do game sound for you. Okay, doesn't appear to be going to the right output. So sound now it should be going to game sync. There we go. There we go. Now that's working, and I'm getting sync. I'm getting audio on the other one as well. Good. Ah, hello, Board Easy. Welcome. I did start a little bit late, but yeah, we've. Yeah, well, I haven't really done too much so far. I've just been talking about what I'm going to be doing in this stream, which is basically going through the script that you can see over here, recording some video to go with it, then recording the script, and then editing the two of them together, because that's roughly how my process goes these days. Okay. I don't know how popular this is going to be as streams go, but you know, I think it could be useful. Right, so this should be capturing. OBS does not seem to have detected Factorio update. Factorio's updated. Okay, it's not because I'm doing weird shenaniganry stuff. It's because OBS detects Factorio by its window title, which changes whenever it updates. So now that we're on Factorio 2.0.77, that means it was broken and wasn't detecting it. That's okay. That's okay. We can sort that out. We can carry on from there. Okay, so now I think I'm ready. This is going to be quite... Oh, no, wait, there's a couple of other things I need to do. I need to remember the command for doing always day. Is it in this document? It is. Hurrah. Always do. And also, because Gleba, I'm going to copy in this command. This one stops the game making the bleep bloop bleep bloop noises whenever something gets destroyed, and that's very important when you're trying to when you have Gleba and landmines on Gleba, and also sometimes turrets on this planet as well. And I don't care about things getting destroyed while I'm recording a video. That's not a problem. They can get destroyed as much as they like. We'll just because I'm not going to be saving this. This is just something we're going to abandon and carry on from the other saves later. Right, so I think things are about ready. So, starting off, we're going from on Rabaska. So, first thing to do is to work out what I want to have the camera pointing at first. And I think, given that this stream is mostly about the turbo fish, also I'd like these pings to disappear, but they'll do that eventually. Probably. Okay, I'll move a bit further down as well because we don't get radar coverage on Rabaska because there's no power on Rabaska. Ah, good, the pings have gone. So if we start off down here with the camera focus here for the for the video intro, because this is what the video is like. And actually, no, technically it's not. Technically, the video is focusing on making these things, but actually, no, a lot of it is about the fish as well. So I think, and the fish are a bit more interesting. So we'll start here. Oh yeah, game speed. That's a good idea. Might as well put that up to normal. That one saved in the history. Oh, and now we've got all the pings flashing again because I opened the chat menu, and that's what seems to be what causes them. Right. Okay. So I've got game audio. I've got my audio being recorded as well, but that doesn't matter. I can. I'm not just not going to use that track. So we can start recording, and that will go to that will obviously go to disk. So, and now I need to basically just go through this at about the speed that I would be reading it at, or ideally slightly slower. So there's a little bit of time for me to. I'd rather be cutting bits of video out than duplicating bits of video, because when I duplicate it, you can see the splices if you look closely enough, and you probably have looked closely enough and probably noticed the splices, and you go, that's very unprofessional, and you're probably right, but oh well. Look at it. Blow my sending off. Check expected. Right, and then we get into chapter 1, scrape it together. So I'm going to go off and have a look at a vault now for the next bit. Over here, yeah. So you can see down here the vault getting unhacked, and this is a sort of a reasonably appropriate thing to go with the me saying it's very temporary. We set up the automated systems, sure, but it is indeed a hassle and requires a steady stream of vault access keys. And there aren't any coming along the belt, which is helpful. Is this actually currently broken, or is it just running very, very slowly? So the vault access keys should be coming out here. No, it is making them. It's just slow. Oh, there's a shortage of red circuits. Oh, I know why this is. Let's gather up a few of the green circuits to... Oh no, it's just that this is not producing stuff fast enough. Okay, well, we'll go back up here. We'll give it a moment. Here comes some access keys, so that's now sort of a reasonably appropriate bit of footage. Just a shame I'm standing in the wrong place. Maybe shooting these things down is actually a better piece of footage than it would otherwise have had, so I'm kind of okay with that. Right, so whilst we can obtain these from mining the Robaston scrap, that's this stuff over here, and then we can demonstrate. Then I can show the numbers over on the other side. It's about 10% of the stuff that comes out is what we actually want from there. With weak ammo, we don't need. Second, the patches are quite small. Where is an actual patch of Robaston scrap? Over there. Yeah. Not many keys. So yes, we do indeed need some kind of automated solution. So Mike is supposed to be starting to make those from raw materials. And while he was doing that, I was dealing with the rest of the ammunition. Step 1 is in fact this here, sortimatron. Separates out the access key. Yes, so the access keys will just carry on straight down the belt here, going off to be used in the rest of the factory. And then the rest of the ammo types will get filtered off onto their own belts. That's fine. I did think I might want it, but no, instead we've just dumped it all into recycling over here. Expansion happened, blah, 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 blah. Recycling did feel very wasteful. And we did get quite a lot of iron out of it, which was useful, although we did end up just scrapping quite a lot of that iron, because whilst it would have been useful, we got it all far too quickly and didn't really have anywhere to store it and didn't know how useful it would have been. But never mind, we've moved on beyond that now. Very resolute for its grenade. Fed out onto the bus. Not much use for overflow into recyclers. Fine. Okay, so back over to Mike. So we'll want to look at the vault access keys. So we'll look in here. Oop. Spelling is difficult. Bring up this guy. Now I'll probably zoom in on this while I'm talking about it in the video. But over here we can see that it requires some of the beta carotene, which we're already making. Tristan started making that in the last video. Fine. Red circuits, pretty standard resource. How hard can it be, indeed? And then finally the turbofish. So we can say that we've seen the turbofish out in the lakes. Here are turbofish. We'll see how easy those are to deal with. Red circuits then. So on Rabaska, we can make red circuits by skimming off this stuff. So we're bringing in energetic... let's just look at one of the machines. We can skim energetic residue. Actually, I'm just talking about it. We'll do that in all of these assemblers here. So if I stand about in the middle of them, then we can get lots of them on screen. Stop being caught by belts. There we go. Usually, I film these things from map view, which is a lot easier because you don't get dragged around by belts and things at that point, and it's a lot easier to point the camera in places. Right, so we're saying that we're skimming a bit like doing some assemblers here, and then we can open one up, and we can say it takes in 100, and you get 90% of it back. So we need header tanks to make sure it's all available. There's one of those visible over on the left, almost like I planned it. I didn't, but it's almost like I did. Pumping a cable. Then about 1 run in 20, we'll get a red circuit out. Also sometimes get green circuits, plastic bottles and spoilage. Fine, these are vaguely useful. We'll see how we get on with them. And then we go. Note that Mike has actually used separate exerters to take all of the different products out. This means he can then use the stack inserters without the machine's outputs jamming up. Meant to need to put side belts in as well because there's only room for 3 inserters along the sides of the machine. Fine, using stack inserters allows us to fit a lot more resource onto the belts. Given there's 4 different ones coming out, it seems like a good idea. Yeah, having each person having different planets led by different people does lead to some lovely differences between them. I won't look at them right now because I'm in the middle of recording, but maybe we'll have a quick whistle-stop tour after we finish this, if you'd like. We're going to talk about the modules. So we don't want to use speed modules. Where was it? I've lost it. Lost the plot. Yeah, can't use speed modules to use the 30 megawatt limit. To minimise power usage, we've got 2 efficiency modules in, bringing power consumption down to the 20% minimum. Machines do have 4 module slots, so I did observe. That we could actually have put in another efficiency module and a speed module to get a bit more out of them without using any extra power up. I think maybe we did tweak the modules a little bit later, but mostly this is sort of working well enough. And then I started talking about them being a big drain on the power consumption. There's a pylon, big drain on the power consumption. Yeah, we're only using 6.5 megawatts in the assemblers at this point. Later on, we're using quite a lot more. Other problem is keeping everything in balance. So right, as you can see at the moment, we have far too many green circuits. Where is it? There we go. As you can see, we currently have too many green circuits, we're preventing the red circuits from flowing. We also have far too much spoilage, so we're not using it at the moment. Sphere set up a system to dump it out. Into the heating tower. Splitter is set. So the splitter is set to prioritise onto the starboard output up here. So we'll only ever see it on the port side where he's monitoring it if there's an excess and it backs up. If we ever see any there, it'll trigger the inserter to load the heating tower, yada yada yada. I don't know why he's done it like this rather than going boom. Where's the heating tower? There's the heating tower. Rather than going like this and just dumping it all straight into the heating tower like so. But, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's working here. We need to set something up to dispose the excess green circuits, to let the red circuits keep flowing, and maybe we'll need something for the plastic bottles, we shall see. Still, this red circuit is being made, at least in theory. Better go and look at the fish. Right, so now we have the fish. Chapter 2, fish. So let's touch down here and stand in the middle of the fish area. So, ingredient 3 is the infamous turbo fish. Has a couple of loops in it just to keep us guessing. Actual fish breeding stage seems fairly simple. We need some harine gas, fine, but Tristan's producing that. We need a source fish, not a fish source. Produces 3, so that is indeed sustainable. You take in 2, put output 3. That is a useful production level. And then we need a protein shake. Yada 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 yada. So I have to trace that one back. So we want to see protein shakes. Again, they seem to be complicated. They require the plastic bottles that we've talked about. Beta carotene, also talked about. They're a little bit harder. So at this point, we're going to need protein powder and calcite. So protein powder is the next one to look at. That comes from turbofish, so that's fun. And this is the point, as I say, this is the point where Mike started to worry about production levels. If making a fish requires protein and protein requires fish, you can see how you might get some issues there. Fortunately, we did the maths, and it turns out it's actually okay, so that's really nice. Incidentally, every time, I don't know if you can actually read the script on the size I'm streaming at the moment, but it turns out that every time you run through the loop, you gain 1 protein powder, which is equivalent to a quarter of a protein shake. So it's quite difficult to make more, at least until you start chucking productivity bonuses in there, but you do at least get a little bit out. Right, so now have a look at this. Yeah, this much of it, I think. Fish are breeding happily at the top, turning into protein powder in the middle, which can be shaken up below. Nice ratio. Can't tell at the moment because there's a shortage of. Oh, no. There isn't actually. So I put in the script there is a shortage of plastic bottles, but because I went in and poked a little bit at the green circuits and picked a few of them up earlier, we don't actually have a shortage of plastic bottles at the moment. We actually have a shortage of protein powder, which kind of puts lie to Mike's claims that the system is perfectly in ratio. Actually, no, take that back. The two chemical plants at the bottom are basically working all of the time, so maybe it is actually to ratio. I could speed this up a little bit and then try and run out of the protein shakes to make the script true. So let's do that. Let's speed up a little bit. My computer is now only capable of running the game at 1.5 times speed. Oh, that's probably because I'm both streaming and recording, and that's hammering the CPU a little bit. I don't know. I should have enough cores to make all of that work, but it does seem to be struggling a little bit. So let's just let this run until we've used up all of the plastic shakers. I could go down and grab them, but then I'd move the camera, and sometimes it's better to try not move. Oh, actually, better idea. I could go like this. And this. As you may have realize, I'm absolutely not above cheating and doing weird things with the game in order to make making videos easier. We absolutely won't cheat during the streams when we're playing the game properly, but if I can streamline making a video a little bit, then I will very happily do things that are not entirely accurate, shall we say. Yeah, it's possible the heat is making it struggle as well. We're down to 31.5 degrees. I mean, there's cold air coming out of the aircon, but it is not that cold. Right, so now we can actually say it's to ratio, but we can't tell because of the shortage of plastic bottles coming through due to the excess of green circuits. And he's even making the access keys in the middle as requested, and I'll zoom in on that because that's a sort of a relevant, interesting, special thing. So it's a good proof of concept. Output is being produced as requested, but it's not big enough or powerful enough. It's not being clever about machine use. Right. So now we're skipping forward to stream 50 to show how the system changed between streams. That happily, wonderfully, because I'm loading a new game up now, means I need to find my find those commands to do things like making it always day again. But that's okay. We can do that. Too darn hot. It's too darn hot. That was a show we did about 3 or 4 years ago, I think. No, less than that. Maybe 2 years ago. Right, back to the actual factory, where we will see if some things have changed. So, what are we supposed to be looking at now? Load stream 50. This is much better. You can see. So now, again, I want to stand in the place where we can see all the fishy business, which is actually about here. There we go. So exactly the same system, but this has now been scaled up, and it's no longer a proof of concept. So you say it's better. You can see the additional machines at every stage. If we look closely, you can see the fish making machines up here are now they're actually biochambers rather than the assembly machines. No, the chemical plants we were using before. It's really nice because the biochambers can be fueled with the protein shakes. So we don't need to worry about an additional nutrient supply, which is nice. And the efficiency modules mean that these will actually last for absolutely ages. We seem to not... The system is not working. Why are we not getting any shakes through? What has broken this time? Ah, there's a shortage of calcite at this point. Do I happen to have any pocket calcite I can put in there? No. So I know why this is happening, but I'd rather it wasn't happening just yet. So let's see if I can steal some calcite from. There's no calcite here. Let's. What can I? How can I kickstart that? The wrong type of. Right. I mean, we do have some purple rocks coming in here, and some of them are going into calcite. Okay, so we're getting a few shakes coming in. So okay, in that case, yes. If I look at one of these machines over here, whoop, and turn that off. If I look at one of these, then we can see it. There we go. That's a better view. So we'll just jump over to this one. The protein shakes, as we can see here, last for ages. So we don't need to worry about an additional nutrient supply. Lasts for ages. And the additional 50% productivity from the biochamber more than covers the fuel costs. So we do end up with extra protein shakes in the end. Biochamber means no electricity cost, which is nice. Entirely powered by protein. Fine. Then I'll give it a little bit longer to in case I'm talking slowly when I get to this point. I probably won't be. It's not like me to talk slowly, but you never know. All right. Right, so the side note of this is that all the protein shakes consume fully. The powering biochambers return their plastic bottles for recycling. And with the current design loading onto the belt, and with the current design side loading onto the belt, that's going to jam up fairly soon. That'll need to be swapped out for priority splitter, which we have now done in the streams. So this has been fixed. It took about 3 attempts to fix it properly, but it has been fixed now. Right. Continuing to the south, we see the machine making the access keys now being replaced with a pair of forges. Where was that? Down here. A pair of forges with the access keys count as a military device. This gets us that free 25% productivity. Which is nice. And we topped it up further with a module for a total of 35%. Let's open this up here. There we go. That one. 10% from that. Closely, you see there's also a degradation module in there. Because we don't want the 25% quality buff. Having things coming out as having these cards coming out at a higher quality level would cause a lot of confusion. The turrets would probably cope, although sometimes they'd end up with no ammunition in them if they, or they just wouldn't end up. They'd end up not using them. But the next step down, where we're making them into the yellow ones, they would cause problems. So I don't want to do that. Okay, I talked about all of that. See, there's now a nice healthy supply of red circuits. What is that? A healthy supply of red circuits and bottles coming in. Well, let's zoom out a little bit more for that comment. It's a reasonably healthy supply of red circuits and bottles coming in, so the access cards are heading out. Feed the turrets, they're capturing the vaults. Ah yes, I was going to go, then for that, I was going to go, so we've got the turrets coming out, cards coming out to feed the turrets that are capturing the vaults. In fact, we've made so many of them, they're even starting to back up down one of the bells. Lovely. And then I'll just pause here for a moment to make sure I've got enough footage of this area before I then go on to chapter 3. But I will. I won't scroll it down because that's the bottom of the document already. Right. So we now need to go back down to this one. No, this one. Down to the shakes. So. Noticed that we've missed an ingredient. Got excited about the fish, so we better go back to where we make the shake. The recipe also requires calcite. Whilst there is some trickling through, this is indeed not what I would call a healthy supply. Calcite is another resource with a special Robascan recipe. That's up here. Can I not fly? Because I suspect it's making noise when he flies. There we go. Another special Robascan recipe, so we can look at this one. It's North Sphere is bringing in the purple rock along with some sulfuric acid, nice, which is made in the traditional way. Okay, I'll move to here. Move that across. Right, I'll start this section again with this shot. Sphere is bringing in the purple rock, the Haronite, along with some sulfuric acid, which is made in the traditional way, all produced from faults. We can then wash the purple off the Haronite rock to get some normal rock. Sure, why not? Leftover purple appears to consist of the valuable calcite that we needed, and a bit of Harian gas byproduct. Here's the reason we weren't filling the tanks completely. That's another one that needs a header tank. This is running a lot slower than I would like because of a major shortage of the Haronite, and that's rippling through to basically everything that we care about on the planet. Shows the other difficulty of this planet. Valuable resources come from vaults. Capturing and keeping vaults requires a certain amount of effort. Now, I should probably run off and point the camera at a vault at this point because just because that's what I'm talking about. So let's go for a quick run. This is significantly easier on planets that this is actually having this. This is significantly easier on planets where I can just pan the map around, because then you just pan the map around, you don't have to run around, it's a bit smoother, a bit easier, and a bit less jumpy and jerky. But never mind, I'll work with what I've got here. So having the moment is a bit of a struggle. Looking to a way to improve our volt access quite soon though. Extremely important, making this planet able to look after itself, at least to a reasonable extent. That'll be in a future video though, make sure you subscribe, back streaming, maybe finish Rabaska, one more to find out. Right, and I'll let this just run for another moment or two. Okay, and this is pretty much the end of phase 2 of producing a video. I've now produced all the footage that will go into the video. I just now need somebody talking in the background a little bit more coherently than I have been over the last mumbly minutes. So that's probably about enough. So at this point I can find OBS again. I can make sure I get the right one, the one that's recording, not the one that's streaming, because it'd be very embarrassing to stop the wrong one recording. There we go. Okay, so that's now finished the video that will go with it. That's a I should probably let's find the file I've made for that one. That is a 2.6 gig MKV file, because I record at quite a high bit rate because I just might as well. There's no real advantage to recording at a lower bit rate, because this way, when I zoom in on stuff, which I do sometimes, because I've had quite a lot of feedback from various people, which I think is absolutely valid feedback. This is not a criticism in any way of that feedback. That especially if they're watching on something small like a phone, if I pop up a window like this, or actually more likely like the Factoriopedia, and then I start talking about some of the text or some of the things that are shown up here, it's quite hard to see, especially if you're also then watching at say 1080p rather than 1440. You can't see all the details of the text, so I tend to zoom in to double size when I'm focusing on one specific part of a dialogue box, and I think that works quite nicely. It adds a little bit of effort to the editing process, but it's absolutely worth it because it makes for a better product. Okay, so I don't need Factorio anymore for this video, so I'll close that for now to save on sort of processing power and all that sort of things. I'll need to reopen it again when I start recording episode 3, but that's fine. I can do that when I can do that when I get there. It doesn't take that long to load. I could carry on doing the audio. I could have carried on actually running the recording in OBS and recorded the audio through there, but I've started using Audacity instead. I'm not really 100% sure why. Just sort of, it is an audio handling application, and so it seemed sensible to do the audio recording in that. It's got a noise reduction thing. I'm going to have to turn the aircon and the fan off while I record this actually, because it is going to be rather noisy. So yeah, so it's got a noise reduction function. It means I don't end up with a 2 gig file that just has me talking in the background of it, because everything's recording at constant bit rate. So it's just generally, I think it's better to use this. Use the appropriate tool for the job. Right, so let's do that, and I suppose that's more fan. I wanted less fan. Give me less fan. Fan is off. Air conditioner is doing its shutdown procedure, shall we say? Right, let's bring this over here so I can see it a little bit more easily, and make it a bit taller. Right, and so the reason I do it this way round, rather than recording the audio and then the video, is sometimes I find that, like you saw earlier with the bottles not actually having run out at the time I was recording it, sometimes what I've said when I'm writing the script is not accurate to the video I end up recording. So if I record the video first, I can then make any little tweaks that are needed in the script and then record the audio after, and I don't have to go back in and record patches of audio, because no matter how hard you try to get the microphone in the same place and talk in the same tone of voice and all of that sort of stuff, it always feels slightly wrong when you jump. And I'm not too bad if I have to cut a sentence out because I've flubbed a sentence and just repeat it immediately. That I'm getting better at, and I think I don't do reasonably well. But if I have to come back and re-record something later, it's almost that thing you get where a lot of YouTubers will just record it in a completely different voice in the voiceover to make it, just to hang a lampshade on it and make it really obvious what they're doing. Right, I already start to feel hot, so I'm gonna start this recording so I can turn the aircon back on again. We've seen where the resources come from on Rabaska, but what are they used for? In today's episode of Laurence Plays Factorio Planetary Pioneers, we're going to look at how I've been bullying Mike by sending him off on a much longer chain of requirements than we expected. This all started because hacking the vaults is very temporary. We've set up automated systems to re-hack the vaults, but it's a hassle, and to make things worse, it requires a steady stream of the vault access keys. Whilst we can obtain those through mining the Rabascan scrap, that's not a good long-term solution for several reasons. Firstly, you only get a key from about 10% of the mining attempts. The rest end up being weak ammo, which we don't need. Secondly, the patches are relatively small and don't contain all that many keys. We need some kind of automated solution. So I asked Mike to start making me some vault access keys from raw materials, and while he was doing that, I dealt with the excess ammo that we'd accumulated. Step 1 was a simple sortomatron to separate out the access keys and all of the ammo here, giving each one its own belt. This was at the point when I thought we might actually want some of this stuff, but in the end though, I just dumped all of these belts straight into the recycling system. It was originally quite a small and neat recycling system, but a lot of expansion happened rather suddenly because we needed a lot of vault access keys before production was running nicely. The recycling felt very wasteful, but it did give us a useful source of iron plates from the yellow magazines, rockets and the grenades. This was fed out onto the bus, but initially we didn't have much use for it, so there's an overflow of that into recyclers as well. I'm sure we won't regret throwing away all this perfectly good ammunition. Okay, back to Mike. Making a vault access key seems relatively straightforward. All you need is some beta-carotene, which we're already making. You saw Tristan set up for that in the last video. Some red circuits, which are a pretty standard resource. How hard can it be? And finally some turbofish. These critters live in the lakes of energetic residue, and we've seen fish breeding in the past, so surely the turbo version will be even quicker. Let's take a look at making red circuits first though. On Rabaska, this is done by skimming the energetic residue. I guess it's a bit like a liquid version of the Fulgoran scrap. We're doing that in these assemblers here. It takes in 100, but you get 90% of that back, so we need some header tanks to make sure there's always somewhere for the assemblers to drain out into. But that's a problem we solved in the past, it's just a pump and a cable. Then, yes, about one run in 20 we'll get a red circuit out, but we'll also sometimes get green circuits, plastic bottles and spoilage. Fine, some of those sound vaguely useful, we'll see how we get on with them. Note that Mike has used separate inserters for each output. This means that he can use stack inserters without the machine's outputs jamming up, but it's meant that he's needed to put these side belts in as well because there's only room for 3 inserters along the side of the machine. Using stack inserters allows us to fit a lot more resources onto the belts, and given that there's 4 different ones coming out here, that seems like a good idea. This recipe is nice and simple, and it does work, but it's quite slow, and we can't really use speed modules very much on this planet due to the 30 megawatt limit imposed on us. In fact, to minimise power usage, each assembler has 2 efficiency modules in it to bring power consumption down to the 20% minimum. These machines do have 4 module slots though, so we could add in a speed module and an extra efficiency module, and as long as we stick with tier 3 modules, that would keep us at minimum power consumption while still getting a 50% speed boost. That would have been a good idea at the time, and we have started to use that sort of balance in the future, but it doesn't make a huge difference. Instead, we've compensated by using a significant number of machines in order to bring production up to a useful level. These machines are a significant drain on our power. At various times, Assembler 3s have been using a full half of our available power, which is a bit alarming. The other problem with a recipe that produces lots of outputs is keeping everything in balance. As you can see, we currently have too many green circuits, which is preventing the red circuits from flowing. We also have far too much spoilage, as we're not using it for anything at the moment. However, Sophia has set up a system here to dump excess spoilage into a heating tower for disposal. The splitter is set to prioritise putting the spoilage on the starboard output, meaning that we'll only ever see any on the port side where he's monitoring it, if there's an excess, and it if there's an excess and it backs up. If we ever see any there, it'll trigger the inserters to load the heating tower and burn off some of the excess. I'm not sure why he's done it like this, rather than just running the low priority side directly into the heating tower like this, but the system he's built will also work fine, so there's no point in changing it, even though I just did. To get this working again, we'll need to set something up to dispose of the excess green circuits, again just like on Fulgora, to allow the red circuits to keep flowing. And maybe we'll need the same for the plastic bottles as well in the future. We shall see. Still, that is red circuits being made, at least in theory. I guess we better go and look at the fish. Ingredient 3 is the infamous turbo fish, and this one has a couple of loops in it just to keep us guessing. The actual fish breeding stage seems fairly simple. We need some harine gas, but that's okay, Tristan's pumping that in from the mines in the north. We need a source fish, not a fish source, or 2, but it produces 3, so that seems sustainable. And then we need a protein shake. I've not seen any cows around here, so I don't think we'll be using whey protein, but I guess we're going to have to trace that one back and see where it comes from. Okay, protein shakes are complicated. They require the plastic bottles that we saw coming out from the residue scraping, at least that's a solved problem, then some beta-carotene, also solved. Then it gets a bit harder. We need protein powder and calcite. It looks like the protein powder can only be made by processing a turbofish, and this is about the point where Mike started to worry about production levels. If making a fish requires protein and protein requires fish, is it going to be sustainable? Fortunately, 1 fish makes 5 protein, and 4 protein makes 1 shake makes 1 fish. So each time the loop runs, we'll gain 1 protein powder or a quarter of a shake. It's not a lot, but at least it's on the right side of 0. Armed with this positive outlook, he started building, and here you can see his early proof of concept design. The fish are happily breeding up at the top, and then being turned into protein powder, which can be shaken up, and then being turned into protein powder in the middle, which can be shaken up below. Mike informs me that this design is nicely to ratio, but unfortunately we can't really tell at the moment because of the shortage of plastic bottles coming through due to the excess of green circuits. He's even making the access keys in the middle as requested. This is a good proof of concept. The output is being produced as requested, but it's not big or powerful enough, and it's not being clever about machine use. Let's skip forward a week. This is much better. You can see the additional machines at every stage, and if we look more closely, you can see that most of the fish breeders have had their chemical plants swapped out for biochambers. This works really nicely because the biochambers can be fueled with the protein shakes as well, so we don't need to worry about an additional nutrient supply, and happily, due to the efficiency modules in there, the shakes last for ages. The additional 50% productivity from the biochamber more than covers the fuel cost, so we end up with extra protein shakes in the end, and biochambers mean no electricity cost. They are entirely powered by the protein shakes. A side note of this, however, is that whilst the protein shakes are consumed fully during the fish breeding process, the ones powering the biochambers do return their plastic bottles for refilling, and with the current design side loading onto the belt, that's going to jam up quite soon. That'll need to be swapped out for a priority splitter. Continuing to the south, we see that the assembler making the access keys has been replaced with a pair of forges because the access keys count as a military device. This gives us a free 25% productivity on them, which is nice, and we've topped that up further with a module for a total of 35%. If you look closely, you'll also see that there's a degradation module from Pelagos tucked in there too, because we don't want the 25% quality buff. Because we don't want the quality buff that the forges give. We'd like to have everything at normal quality so that the turrets and later buildings, which we'll talk about in another video, don't get confused. This is the sort of place I was thinking of when I mentioned the degradation modules in the last series. They're quite niche, but they're very useful when you need them. You can see that we now have a healthy supply of red circuits and bottles coming in, and so the access cards are heading out and going to feed the turrets that are capturing the vaults. Lovely. In fact, we've even made enough of them that they've backed up all the way down one of the belts. The perspicacious among you will remember that I've missed an ingredient. I got a little bit too excited about the fish, and so we better go back to where we make the shake. This recipe also requires calcite, and whilst there is some trickling through, that's not what I call a healthy supply. Calcite is another resource which has a special Robascan recipe. Up here to the north, Sophia is bringing in the purple rock haronite, along with some sulfuric acid, which is made in the traditional way from sulfur, iron and water, and all of these are produced from voles. We can then wash the purple off this haronite rock to get some normal rock. Okay, why not? And then the leftover purple appears to consist of a valuable calcite and a bit of harine gas byproduct. I knew there was a reason we weren't filling the tanks completely. That's another one that needs a header tank. This is running a lot slower than I would like because of a major shortage of Haronite, and that's rippling through to basically everything that we care about on this planet. And this shows the other difficulty of this planet, apart from the power cap. The valuable resources come from vaults, and capturing and keeping vaults requires a certain amount of effort, and at the moment is a bit of a struggle. We'll be looking into ways to improve our vault access quite soon though. Having that level of stability is going to be extremely important in making this planet able to look after itself, at least to a reasonable extent. That'll all be in a future video though, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. We'll be back streaming on Monday at 7:30 PM UK time, and maybe we'll have finished Rabaska by then. There's only one way to find out. I'll also be streaming something else on Wednesday, maybe another LucasArts adventure game, maybe another Factorio mod, we shall see. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. Right, and there we go, that's the voiceover now. So, what's been said, well, right, I'm going to turn the air conditioner back on because I am ridiculously hot now. It's still actually only, well, it's still only 32 degrees, but not having the fans blowing on me makes an enormous difference. Okay, you think the degradation modules would spoil more access, Doopy? Okay, in that case, that sounds like a good reason to use them. In the case of Rabaska, I feel it's probably valid because forges aren't a Rabaskan thing, and degradation modules aren't a Rabaskan thing, but they are both just upgraded assembly. Well, sorry, the forges are just upgraded assembly machines. So I think using them there is legit. And yeah, hello Mike, welcome to the stream. That sounds likely, Tristan. Yeah, I imagine if one of them is a problem, then I imagine both of them would be a problem. Right, noise remote reduction. Get profile, select the whole thing. Do noise reduction. Go. So that's coming. That's coming actually fairly short. So I aim to make the videos certainly between 10 and 15 minutes these days, which tends to come out, which I reckon, with a target being maybe 12 minutes, should we say. This one seems to be a little bit shorter than I would like. Is that because I was talking quickly, or it's still, it's 2,200 words, and I reckon I talk at about 200 words per minute when I'm recording one of these things. So that should be about 11 minutes, but it seems to be a little bit shorter. Maybe I'll be able to pad it out a little bit when I'm editing it, or maybe it'll be just be a slightly shorter video than some of them. We'll see. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter too much, I don't think, but I'd like them to be. I certainly want them to be over 10 minutes because I think that's sort of a magic number on YouTube, and I don't want them to be too much longer. Right. So this is Series 4, Episode 2, voice over. Save it into the Planetary Pioneers directory. Export. Boom. Right, that's that done. I will now stick the script back up here. Just tuck it out of the way a little bit. I think normally I probably put it on the right-hand screen, the one that I've got chat and OBS and whatnot open on, but that's fine. It doesn't matter a great deal exactly where it is. Right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save as here, and I'm going to change this to be episode 2, because if I overwrite episode 1, I won't be that upset because I've already uploaded it and it's gone now, so I don't really need the source files anymore, but I'm keeping them all as a bit of a pack rat. I have four monitors, so you're seeing 3, that's the wrong OBS window, you're seeing 3 of them at the moment, and there's a 4th one that's got chat and OBS and stream related stuff on it because I didn't want to get, because it seemed a bit excessive to, well, I didn't think you needed to see that, basically. And it means there's a nice convenient gap at the top, but just above here for me to put the chat on. And there is a, what? Why is there a, I don't know why there's a mouse cursor drifting around there on the screen. That's very strange, but oh well, I'm not going to worry about it too much. Yeah, I started off with, well, I started off with 1 monitor back in the dark ages, but then I moved on to sort of having 2 monitors and reckoning that was the absolute bare minimum that is required for a computer to be remotely usable. Now I reckon 3 monitors I think is the sweet spot. 3 monitors is a good number of monitors to have. The 4th one is mostly only used I actually originally fitted the fourth one because I was using 2 computers at one point, with one of them playing the game and the other handling the streaming. But I've sort of kept it because why not? I've got enough outputs on my graphics card for I don't know how many, but more than certainly at least 4. So I thought I might as well keep the fourth one, and it's a little bit useful, but it doesn't get used all that much because it's up there and it's higher up, and that makes it a bit more awkward to look at. So I don't tend to use it all that much. You have my sympathy, dupe. Well, if your monitor is a 1080p monitor, then you definitely, or lower even, then you definitely have my sympathy. I would consider that to be insufficient. But if it's a 4K monitor, then that would probably be that would be okay. Yeah, I'm a professional nerd. I need lots of monitors. I do also use this layout for work as well. Although that said, the when it's plugged into my when it's running with my work computer, it only uses the main 3 because that only has one DVI port on the output, and so it can only run the 3 of them rather than all 4, because the 2 of them don't support DVI. No, sorry, DisplayPort even. 2 of them don't do DisplayPort out, so I can only have a chain of 3. No 4K. Yeah, monitor. I think 1080p monitors are pretty cheap these days. So. Thing is, though, when I start editing a video, I'll be using 2 of them like this for the video. So I'll have the when it actually catches up. There we go. So I've got the preview of the video on this one here, and then the timeline and all of the other stuff on this one over here, and then probably I'll have a file browser on the other monitor, so I can drag stuff over onto, so I can drag files into it and things like that. So I do find that certainly 3 is very, very useful. The fourth one is unnecessary, if I'm being honest, but there's no real harm in it, and it does occasionally come in useful. Right, let's rename that video capture I made. That is series 4, episode 2 capture, and grab. Right, first I need to clean up over here. So I want to get rid of all of lots of these things. So I don't want that. Don't want that. Don't want that. Don't want that. Do want to keep that one though. So delete all of that. And that deletes all the source files from episode 1. I've deliberately kept these 2 though, because it's easier for things that are of a standard format. It's much easier to keep a copy from the previous video and then duplicate it. So I'm going to hang on to that. Then I'm going to delete all of this from the timeline, and I'm going to keep the audio. Rabaska doesn't have its own music, so I've just grabbed one of the space themes from Space Age, and I'm using that. Then I want to pull in the voiceover and the video capture that I've just recorded. It's like watching a tennis match. Please add the files to the project. There we go. That's better. So Kdenlive will now pull them in and cache them. So it looks like for what's probably going to be about a 10-minute video, I've done 21 minutes of recording. That's not bad, and I think it's usually somewhere between 50 and 100% over the actual length of the video, because as you see, I like to try and pad it out a little bit, to make the cuts easier and less jumpy. Just drag it in down here, put it on the timeline. I said put it on the timeline. There we go. And now here we go. Here I've got some. I've got more clips than I actually need here. So this was me idly chatting with you guys while I was recording the video. This one is the game audio, and this would be Discord audio if there's anyone on I was talking to on Discord at the moment. But I'm not doing that, so I'll get rid of that one. Get rid of that one, and then I will group these 2 back together again, so that I can handle them as a single thing whenever I cut it. So basically, it ensures that the game audio is always in sequence. It is always in sync with the game video. Also want the voiceover in there as well, like that. And right, that's basically everything dragged in now. I'm ready to start doing the editing. One very important thing to do is come in here and change the episode number. Occasionally I forget this, and then I get lots and lots of comments on the videos telling me that I've forgotten to update the episode number. And by the time I get those comments, it's too late to do it, because you can't edit a video once you've uploaded it, for fairly obvious reasons. If I forget to update it in the thumbnail or in the YouTube title, then it's okay. I can update those. But if it's this bit here where it's baked into the actual video, nothing you can do. Alright, this is all going to be Rabaska. I'll leave that title in place for the moment, and I don't want the silence at the beginning of the video before I start, at the beginning of the audio track before I start talking. And at this point, I'm going to actually have to put my headphones on. Yes, you can catch any mistakes I make. I tried vertical monitors for a little while. I found that they were useful sometimes, but they weren't useful enough of the time to actually be worth it. However, I suspect if I did a lot of coding, maybe I'd find it more useful. I don't know. I'm sure there are use cases where vertical monitors are very useful. But personally, I found it didn't really work all that well for me. Even number, better number, maybe. I've wondered about the VR headset and virtual monitors thing, and whether it's sort of how high a resolution the view is. As long as it's high enough resolution that they do all feel like good quality monitors, then that could be quite nice. I don't even know if mine get what refresh rate mine go up to, but yeah, that's my point. The monitors are pretty cheap. My two most basic monitors, actually one of which I've more or less given to my parents. I said it was a long-term loan when I gave it to them, just in case I ever wanted it back again. But I think at this point I've basically given it to them. They'd probably be slightly miffed if I asked for it back. So hopefully I won't need it. I don't need a fifth monitor. That'd be silly. So those are now relatively old. I've had them. I don't know how long I've had them for. They've had them long enough that they have VGA inputs as well as DVI inputs on the back of them. So that shows how old they are. They were about £100 each at the time. So I would expect you could probably get a similar monitor for less than $70 or whatever the equivalent is in real money. I have to admit I've not looked. The only ones I've been interested in recently were the ones I made work buy for me, which have DisplayPort pass-through, and then my middle one, which is the one that currently has the video preview on it, and that's a 1440 one, which I did get as a sort of I think it was a refurb one, and that was actually also relatively cheap, and it's a good enough monitor. I know that some of the some of the gamers on the channel who play sort of all the various Twitch games, like Overwatch or something like that, would want a monitor that has about 100 times greater refresh rate. But I play Factorio. I don't need a refresh rate greater than 60 frames per second, or 60 hertz rather. It would just be completely wasted. Hello, regular. Welcome. Yes, you can do the proofreading for me. YouTube Studio does allow some light editing, but basically it's only cropping the video ends, or it's only cutting chunks out of the video. So yeah, I could, for example, go into all of my streams and cut off the 5 minutes at the beginning where it's showing the intro video and the countdown timer and so on. That sort of thing you can do. And what you can also do is you can cut it off and then put it back on later, which I've done with some of my tutorial videos. All the new ones of those I upload have a bit at the beginning saying this video is out of date, please go and look for the updated version of it, that I then cut off with the YouTube Studio thing, because then if I release an updated version of it, I can go back and uncut that bit off, so whenever anyone watches it, the first thing they'll see is a massive Laurence Plays logo and this video is now out of date, please see the description for the updated version. Because a lot of my videos have quite a lot of views and probably have been linked to places, and YouTube knows they're good videos because so many people have watched them and watched quite a lot of them, so I don't want to just delete them or make them unlisted, because then people wouldn't be able to use those to find the newer version. But I have massive capital letters on them saying this video is out of date and stuff like that. So yeah. Yeah, I mean I can see the use of vertical monitors for chat and documents and text and stuff like that. I just never really got into it. I probably should try it again and see if I like it anymore now, but I haven't. And I do a lot of documents as well, so that's for work, so it's the sort of thing where it could well be quite useful. But then a 1440p monitor is almost two vertical 1080p monitors next to each other. It's not quite. I'd need a 4K screen for that, really, but it's getting on for being two vertical monitors. So I will often have I sometimes have two documents next to each other on the main monitor because it's slightly higher res. Oldest tech-related thing you own is an AOL install disk. I don't think I've got any of those. It's probably going to be some sort of audio cable or something like that. I've got some VGA cables, they're fairly old. Last time I moved house, I had a bit of a tidy up and chucked out some of the stuff, some of the really, really out-of-date things like parallel cables and that sort of thing, because yeah, they were definitely past their useful date. I might have some RJ11s, but technically they're still used if you have ADSL or an actual phone. So yeah, actually no, RJ11s aren't. Yes, they do. RJ11s tend to be used on the output side of the ADSL filters, I think, as far as I remember. Anyway, where was I? I feel like I probably do have some run. Oh, I've got I've got some photography gear that used to belong to my dad. That's pretty old. Maybe that counts as my oldest tech gear. That would have to do. Yeah, I realised that, Tristan. I deleted one of them, and then it's obviously done it again because I started streaming. Oh well, never mind. Things with VGA are taxed lower because they're for work, while HDMI is categorised as TVs for fun. Yeah, I can sort of make sense. I mean, I can sort of see the logic behind it, sort of. The one that I have a similar problem myself that drives me up the wall, and that's that DSLRs will only record up to 20-25 minutes of video for tax reasons. Because I think it's in Japan, although it's possible it's the US, but I think it's Japan, if a camera can record for more than 25 minutes, it counts as a video camera, and that's taxed differently from a stills camera. And so my DSLRs will only record for 20-25 minutes, which is really annoying when I'm trying to record a show with them. I just have to have two running and then swap back and forth between them. I've turned that into a reasonably good. I've got a reasonably good system and technique for doing that now. It does basically work, and I've done a few shows like that, but it is quite annoying. I would quite like to have a camera that takes, has sufficient zoom that it can pick up the stage and to stage at full screen. There we go, full screen, and record at 4K at about 70mm, 35mm equivalent. But that sort of camera seems to be have a 4-figure price tag, should we say? So I've not got one of those yet because I haven't been paid to do enough shows yet to cover the cost of it. But if I had a video camera that would record forever and at 4K, then I could just leave that running for the whole show and then do a bit of digital zoom with it, and then use my current SLR for close-ups of people when they've got a solo or something like that, and that would be perfect. But it requires a lot more investment than I'm prepared to make at the moment when I'm not making any money from it. Where's my train of thought going with that? I thought I had another train, but it seems to have gone. Oh yeah, when I'm recording the woodworking stuff for YouTube, for my personal YouTube videos, or all the car stuff and those sort of things, that I'll use my phone for that, because this does record at 4K and decent quality 4K, and doesn't stop recording until it overheats. So it's quite good for that, but it doesn't have the zoom for me to be able to use it in the theatre. So yeah, can't use it there. Yes, I installed Magic Lantern on. So I bought a 550D to be the second DSLR that I would use for filming. Partly because it was the cheapest one that will actually do 1080p recording, and because Magic Lantern works for it. However, Magic Lantern does not do infinite recording, even though it claims to. Magic Lantern just automatically starts the recording again when it stops, so you get a gap of a second or two between your video clips. So nope, it doesn't do that. I was actually quite annoyed by that, because a large part of the reason I bought the 550D and learn how to put Magic Lantern on it was because I thought it was going to allow the camera to just keep recording, but it doesn't. Yeah, and it doesn't do a seamless thing where one clip stops and the next one starts with no gap between them. It just stops. The camera goes, "Oh, I've stopped recording," and then starts recording again. Just not good enough for what I was trying to do. Right, so I'm supposed to be editing a video apparently. Let's do a little bit of that then. So I've got the seeker bar at the start, so it means I can go from right from the beginning of the video, and I can't hear it. That's because my headphones shut off while I was out of the house. There we go. You guys can't hear it though. Let's link it up so you can. Otherwise it's going to be a lot of me staring at the thing going, while you go, what are you talking about? So, no, look, no, I want that back. Right, let's put you up here. ODBS, no. Caden Live audio stream. Caden Live has multiple audio streams, that's helpful. What are you doing? That's the microphone. Okay, fine. Oh, I've got two. I've got two copies of OBS open. That's why it looks fun. That's why it's such a mess here. GameSync. I could just feed it straight into GameSync. Actually, that's probably the easiest way. So let's do both. Let's just do both of these and assume that that'll give both streams from Caden Live, and then you should get everything as I'm hearing. Right. So if I rewind this again a bit, we've seen where the resources come from on Rabaska. That's really loud, at least for me. But hopefully that now is you can now hear the audio from there. Right. So what I'm what are they using? Yes, you can. Good. Right. So let's go through and start the editing process. So the first thing I need to line up is this sort of intro card thing here that shows the split of the last few planets we've been to, logo, other logo, episode number, and so on. So we need to work out where to put that. We've seen where the resources come from on Rabaska, but what are they used for? In today's episode of Laurence Plays Factorio Planetary Pioneers, we're going to look at how I've been bullying Mike by sending him off on a much longer chain of requirements than we expected. That's probably about right, actually. I'm happy with where that's fallen. I've moved it back a little bit and shortened the end a little to make it line up better, but it's in the right place. So now let's cut the audio there because that's the gap between the intro and the first chapter. Okay, you might be getting multiple feeds then for some of it. Let's remove those two and see if it sounds any more sensible. But I'll get to that in a second. Firstly, I need to put in a 1 second gap in there because that's how much of a gap I leave between chapters. I don't want to have a massive long intro sequence because it's annoying and people will end up skipping it anyway. So there's no point in having a big long opening titles sequence. This thing is absolutely enough. Right. So the first chapter is called Scraped Together. So create a title card for that, and I can drop this in here and line it up with the end of the audio. And I have a previously made set of effects on it, which it's called chapter title, which I can drop on there, and that takes it from being in the middle of the screen to appearing at the top of the screen, zooming in, and then fading out and zooming away like that. So in order to make them all look the same, I do that with all of them. Right, and I then need to also cut the audio. Cut the video there as well. There's going to lose a bit of that, and then I want to put these in the right place. So I have a 10-second overlap here. Let's try that again. So 10-second overlap here would be -2 like that, and then same on the other side, so there, and then another, not 10 seconds, 10 frames like that, and then we want that to fade out as well over 20 frames. This part is a little bit annoying because it's a little bit fiddly, although I can zoom in more to make it slightly less fiddly. But I have to do it for each chapter, and I haven't found a good way to automate this yet. And I could copy the effects from this one to this one when I've done some of it, but it doesn't really feel worth it because it's still pretty easy to drag that out. It's just when I have to set 6 of them, it's a little bit annoying. And as I say, I've not found a good way to automate that. All right, so the next bit we're supposed to be looking at where we're hacking some of the vaults because I talked about that briefly at the start of the section of the video. So
Secondly,
came up here,
which is relatively small.
stopped about. Oh yeah, and we wanted the access keys to be coming in as well. So I went away and came back and re-recorded that bit like this. So let's cut that there, get rid of all of that bit, don't need any of that, and I can drag this back over here, line it up with the planet title, and I come back in here and again do the fade in over 20 frames and fade in over 10 frames for the audio. Right, so that's the 0th chapter done, and the jump over into the second chapter, into the first bit. So now I can start it playing again.
This all started because hacking the vaults is very temporary. We've set up automated systems to re-hack the vaults, but it's a hassle.
I'm jumping around a bit there, and I don't like the way it's shaking the camera. So let's pull back to when I actually calm down a little bit. And actually, we're going to pull back to there and see if there's enough left.
This all started because hacking the vaults is very temporary. We've set up automated systems to rehack the vaults, but it's a hassle, and to make things worse, it requires a steady stream of the vault access keys. Whilst we can obtain those through mining the robust scrap, that's not a good long-term solution for several reasons. Firstly, you only get a key from several reasons.
Right, I flubbed the lines there, so I'll delete a little bit of that.
For several reasons. Firstly, you only get a key from about 10% of the mining attempts.
Right, so this is about where we want the mine to appear. So I think actually, despite what I was saying earlier, I'm going to have to keep in the bit where I jumped around a bit because I didn't sit there for long enough before I started bringing this in. So what I could do is cut the video here and copy it over and have several copies of it. But I'd rather not. I think I'd rather get to the point where the drill appears here. So cut the video there.
Firstly, you only get a key.
Right, and let's put that there. Lines up nice and easily. Okay, but this does make it a little bit more exciting.
This all started
because we've got the access keys coming in, and then shooting down some drones.
Automated systems to rehack the vaults, but it's a hassle, and to make things work.
I'm okay with that. I think I'd rather have had the access keys coming along at the point when I was talking about them and the camera not moving, but it's good enough. I think that's fine.
Firstly, you only get a key from about 10% of the mining attempts. The rest end up being weak ammo, which we don't need.
So what I'm going to do with this edit is I'm going to do one sweep through where I'm going to just line up basically lining up the audio and the video to get everything in place, and then I'll do a second sweep through where I'll do things like zooms and overlays and any other little bits and pieces that it needs. That way it's a bit more. If I find that if I try to do too many things at once, then I start to not necessarily get confused, but I'm trying to concentrate on too many things, and it means I end up neglecting one or the other, or it just means it gets a bit more annoying because I'm trying to jump around between various different tasks. So one thing at a time. Let's carry on playing.
Secondly, the patches are relatively small and don't contain all. Secondly,
right, this is where I want to zoom out to that map view that I captured.
Patches are relatively small and don't materials. And
like this. Exactly, yeah. Get lost in the details and lose track of what I was trying to edit at the time. So better to just do this bit first, and then come back and do the prettification later.
Secondly, the patches are relatively small and don't contain all that many keys. We need some kind of automated solution. So I asked Mike to start making me some vault access keys from raw materials, and while he was doing that, I dealt with the excess ammo that we accumulated.
Okay, I think that's fine. I'll stick with the map view while I'm talking about what Mike and I are doing. And then I went off to deal with the excess ammo, which is here. Yeah, be standing still, Haldy.
The excess ammo that we accumulated. Step 1 was a simple sortometron to separate out the access keys and all of the ammo here, giving each one its own belt. This was at the point when I thought we might actually want some of this stuff, but in the end though, I just dumped all of these belts straight into the recycling system. It was originally quite a small and neat recycling system, but a lot of expansion happened rather suddenly because...
Right. So now that where I got to the recycling system.
We might actually want some of this stuff. But in the end, though, I just dumped all of these belts straight into the recycling system. It was originally...
That I think is a bit too long a pause between sentences. I was probably trying to find where I was in the document or scroll or something like that. I'm not sure.
Straight into the recycling system. It was originally quite a small and neat recycling system, but a lot of expansion happened rather suddenly because we needed a lot of vault access keys before production was running nicely. The recycling felt very wasteful, but it did give us a useful source of iron plates from the yellow magazines, rockets, and the grenades. This was fed out onto the bus, but initially we didn't have much use for it, so there's an overflow of that into recyclers as well. I'm sure we won't regret throwing away all this perfectly good ammunition. Okay, back to Mike. Making a vault access key seems relatively straightforward. All you need is some beta-carotene, which we're already making. You saw Tristan set up for that in the last video.
Right, there we go. Here we are now looking at the vault access keys. So grab that bit of video.
Good ammunition. Okay, back to Mike. Making a vault access key seems relatively straightforward. All you need is some beta-carotene, which we're already making. You saw Tristan set up for that in the last video. Some red circuits, which are a pretty standard resource. How hard can it be? And finally some turbofish. These critters live in the lakes of energetic residue.
Right, and I found some footage of the, yes, like this, of a turbofish swimming around like a, well, like a turbofish, I suppose.
These critters live in the lakes of energetic residue, and we've seen fish breeding in the past, so surely the turbo version will be even quicker.
Where's this in the script up here? Okay. So this is just an end, just paragraph end, end of a paragraph.
Let's take a look at making red circuits first.
Let's cut a bit of that silence out.
Will be even quicker. Let's take a look at making red circuits first. On Robasco, this is done by skimming the energetic residue.
Right, I've sort of flubbed back and forth a little bit on this one. I think I opened up one of... Oops, didn't mean to zoom that. I meant to zoom this one. I opened up one of the machines a bit too early on and then realised actually I was talking about some other part of the process. So let's find... Yeah, I think I wanted the... I think I want this view to start with. So take that. You can see how I quickly get through about how I can turn 20 minutes of video or 20 minutes of recorded video into about 10 into a 10-minute finished video, or in this case, it's only a 21-minute video. As I say, that's not too bad. That's using quite a lot of the available video that I've made. Sometimes it's often a lot less than that actually makes it through into the finished product.
Quicker. Let's take a look at making red circuits first. On Robasco, this is done by skimming the energetic residue. I guess it's a bit like a liquid version of the full Laurence scrap. We're doing that in these assemblers here. It takes in 100, but you get 90%.
Right, and then I've started talking about the recipe, so we need to have the recipe visible. Like that.
These assemblers here. It takes in 100, but you get 90% of that back. So we need some header tanks to make sure there's always somewhere for the assemblers to
And I can point at this up here while I'm
that's
doing
a problem
that.
we solved in the past. It's just a pump and a cable. Then, yes, about...
That was a bit of a noise. I don't want that in there.
Then...
Like that. So we'll get rid of that bit. That shouldn't be there. But I'll leave the gap because it's okay for there to be a little bit of...
Then,
there we go.
Yes, about one run in 20, we'll get a red circuit out. But we'll also sometimes get green circuits, plastic bottles and spoilage. Fine, some of those sound vaguely useful. We'll see how we get on with them. Note that Mike has used separate inserters. And that was actually an impressively well-timed zoom. It happened to be at exactly the right point, so I don't need to do any editing there. The camera zoomed in at just the point when I wanted to say, hey, look at these, all these inserters. Possibly, in hindsight, I should have turned off alt mode. Although actually, no, looking at the ones around the top are quite clear what they are. The ones around the bottom are difficult to see because all the icons and everything, they're just all getting on top of each other. So we'll look at these ones around the top as an example of how things have been set up here. Let's use separate inserters for each output. This means that he can use stack inserters without the machine's outputs jamming up. But it's meant that he's needed to put these side belts in as well because there's only room for 3 inserters along the side of the machine. Using stack inserters allows us to fit a lot more resources onto the belts, and given that there's 4 different ones coming out here, that seems like a good idea. This recipe is nice and simple. Again, too long a pause. That seems like a good idea. This recipe is nice and simple. It does work, but it's quite slow, and we can't really use speed modules very much on this planet due to the 30 megawatt limit imposed on us. In fact, to minimize...
Still lots of noise there.
In fact, to minimise power usage, each assembler has 2 efficiency modules in it to bring power consumption down to the 20% minimum. Right, I want to show the power consumption here, so let's cut it there. Maybe I'll cut it slightly later, I'm not sure, but I want to show the power consumption on the like that. There we go. So now with this panel visible on the right hand side, I can now show the amount of I can show the I can show how much power it's using. It's at minus 80%. This is one of the places where I'll use a zoom. Now, okay, you're seeing it at a quarter of the screen, so half size in each direction, which makes quite a big difference on how easy it is to see.
But yeah, if the video was being watched on a phone or something like that, then this is why I would start putting in these zooms.
Power consumption, while still getting a 50% speed boost.
Oh, in the wrong place.
Minimize power usage. Each assembler has 2 efficiency modules in it to bring power consumption down to the 20% minimum. These machines do have 4 module slots though, so we could add in a speed module.
Did I open up a machine? Yes, I did. Yeah, good to show the module slots.
These machines do have 4 module slots though, so we could add in a speed module and an extra efficiency module. And as long as we stick with tier 3 modules, that will keep us at minimum power consumption while still getting a 50% speed boost. That would have been a good idea at the time, and we have started to use that sort of balance in the future, but it doesn't make a huge difference. Instead, we've compensated by using a huge difference. Instead, we've compensated by using a significant number of machines in order to bring production up to a useful level. These machines are a significant drain on our power.
Where are you going? Oh, I see.
That would have been a good idea at the time, and it's used to balance the future, but it doesn't make a huge difference.
Okay, so right, so this. I've gone up to look at the pylon to see. So I want to show the power when I'm talking about how much power the assemblers use. Fine. So I cut it there, and
instead we've compensated by using a significant number of machines in order to bring production up to a useful level. These machines are a significant drain on our power at various times.
Right. This is one of those places where it gets slightly problematic because this bit I don't want the footage of my character running around. This one goes here where he's talking about power, so that basically has to be there. This runs to here.
Instead, we've
yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right, Quagor. Yes, Factorio is wonderful for this sort of making this sort of video, because if you keep the camera stationary, you can cut, and unless you're really paying attention, you don't notice that maybe an insert is in a different position or stuff is in a slightly different place on a belt. The worst one was when I was making the Pelagos videos, because there are agricultural towers all over the place there, and they move a lot, so that you'd have an arm swing from here to over here instantly because of a cut, and it looks a bit weird. But generally, yes, it's really, really easy to cut a video together like this. I've done a few videos with Foundry as well, because that's a first-person view and it's the full 3D game. The cuts are a bit more jarring in that, should we say? So it's a lot harder to do. That said, the cuts are much more infrequent in the new style videos. If you go back to the old ones, the ones I did before we went to Pelagos, you'll see. If you go really looking for it and concentrating on it, then you might start to notice some of the cuts, because with those ones, that was back in the days when I was just loading the game, running the game, and talking about things whilst I was actually playing. So I was basically just doing it live. It was like a mini stream, and then I go in and edit out some of the flubs and the ums and the ers and anywhere where I realised actually I wanted to say something differently. And so there are a lot more cuts in there, and it's not just an audio cut; it's also a video cut at that point. So you get you get a jump each time that happens. When I was doing it well, you could only really tell because the shadows of the clouds on the ground would move, and Rabaska doesn't seem to have clouds. I think it might not have an atmosphere. So Rabaska is quite a good one for this sort of thing. But yeah, I've got better at the. I have got better over time at the cuts. The hardest part when I was doing it in the off-the-cuff way was remembering what I'd said at the end of the previous sentence in order to go back to the beginning of what I was just saying again. And sometimes you get weird bits that didn't quite make sense, and so I'd have to do something funny with it, or possibly even re-record bits. The other problem with that was that when I then showed the videos to the rest of the gang I'm playing with for review, they would sometimes point out problems in it, mistakes I'd made, or things I hadn't understood properly, or usually Tristan telling me I'd said somebody else had done something that he'd done, or that sort of thing. And then the edits were significantly more difficult, because I'd have to go back in and try and record audio or video or both, and try and sort of squish them together and make it all sort of vaguely make sense. Now they get to do the factual reviewing when they see the script, and so that means they can when they see the script, and that means they can they can criticize things before I've done any recording, and it's a lot easier to change words in a text file than it is to change talking and looking at things in video. So that's the big advantage of this way of doing it from the editing point of view, I think. If Rabaska doesn't have an atmosphere, it could well mean that burner machines are not allowed. So when I tell Mike next time that I want him to start putting in lumber mills, he might end up telling me that he actually can't. I guess we'll see. But yes, it needs some different machines. But ideally, it'll have some lumber mills. But it is quite possible that we won't be able to use them because they are burner machines. Hello, Tommy. This is probably, I think this is the first edit stream I've actually done, so you haven't missed many from that one. This is because I had such a busy week last week that I've got rather a long way behind in my video production. So I thought, well, rather than streaming tonight and getting even further behind, not even further behind, and not making any progress at all, why not have a stream where I show the process that I go through and we can talk about it a bit and I can demonstrate things and. Yeah, I can show you how the sausage is made, as it were, and also get some video made at the same time. So it's useful from a couple of points of view there. Right. So as I was saying, this bit here is difficult because I start moving. So what I'm going to do is just delete that, and then I'm going to cut this one here. Drag it to over here and then extend it backwards. And this is what I was saying earlier, I don't want to do this more than I have to, but 1 or 2 cuts like that aren't too bad. And if we watch this bit,
but it doesn't make a huge difference in the future. But it doesn't make a huge difference.
That's pretty good actually.
But it doesn't make a huge difference.
I think those red circuits appear out of nowhere.
But it doesn't make a huge difference.
Yeah, those red circuits appear out of nowhere, but that's a pretty good splice between 2 chunks of video. I could even do this and have it literally fade from one to the other.
But it doesn't make a huge difference.
But then you get some red circuits fading in there and some green circuits fading out. So I think that actually looks worse. We'll just go for the abrupt cut there, and nobody will notice that some red circuits have appeared in that inserter's hand and that some red circuits have appeared on the belt. You have to be looking for it to notice it, I think. Yes, delicious sausage. When will the video of this stream come out? A video about me making videos. Yeah, I'm going to say approximately the 5th of never for that one. Burner towers do work. Burner towers definitely work on Rabaska. So apparently they're getting oxygen from somewhere. I don't remember whether burner towers work on Maluna or spaceships. Spaceships you don't need them because you just chuck stuff overboard, unless you need the heat, I suppose. I don't know. It'll see. We will see when we get. We will see when we try and place it in. You think we checked the lumber mills on Rabaska a few weeks ago? Maybe we did. I don't remember that. But also my memory is notoriously bad. Yeah, I think it's often interesting to see this sort of thing being done. I don't expect this is a thing I don't expect I'll do this very often, because I suspect it's not going to be very interesting to see several video streams of me making videos. But as a one-off, I think it has some potential. Put this out as a video in a year review. Or maybe in a year I'll do another stream showing and we can see whether my process of making videos has changed significantly, because it actually has a bit now. Because this is the new whole thing with the scripts and all that sort of shenanigans. It goes between the monitors. That's nice. Yeah, with the scripts and going off and recording it in sections is new. So in another year, maybe I'll have changed stuff again, or maybe I'll have stopped doing these catch-up videos because they'll have driven me completely insane. I don't know. We'll see. See how it goes. Yeah, exactly, Kartoffel. And I'm definitely doing a lot more talking than I would when I'm editing one of these videos in general. So yeah, I think it's a fun thing to do once. But I suspect that maybe some people do enjoy them. I don't know. I'll see what sort of viewership, how many views I get from this thing afterwards, and if it's really high, if it's higher than my normal Wednesday streams, then maybe I'll do a few more. So we shall see. Yes, if you know there's a cut there and you're carefully looking at both sides of it, they are noticeable. But when the video just plows straight on and the camera doesn't move, and especially when the belts aren't changing all that much, and these are mostly empty, so there's not a huge amount of change. Yeah, they're nice and subtle. Right, so we can carry on.
Instead, we've compensated by using a significant number of machines in order to bring production up to a useful level. These machines are a significant drain on our power. At various times, Assembler 3s have been using a full half of our available power, which is a bit alarming. The other problem with a recipe that produces lots of outputs is keeping everything in balance. As you can see, we currently have too many green circuits.
I think you stopped moving. Right, that means I can grab that, cut that, drag that to there, and then there we
The
go.
other problem with a recipe...
So, I mean, that is obviously a very, very visible cut, but it's moving from one place to another, or one topic to another, so I think that's absolutely fine. Again, I could put a fade in there, but I don't really like to. About the only place I use fades or fade out, I use fade out and fade in for chapters, and if I'm doing something that's deliberately meant to look like a time skip, then I'll have it fade to black and fade back in again, usually over about half a second, to sort of signify the time, a jump forwards in time. But if it's just moving from kind of one scene to another, I think an abrupt cut looks better than anything else I might do.
The other problem with a recipe that produces lots of outputs is keeping everything in balance. As you can see, we currently have too many green circuits, which is preventing the red circuits from flowing. We also have far too much spoilage, as we're not using it for anything at the moment. However, Sophia has set up a system here to dump excess spoilage into a heating tower for disposal. The splitter is set to prioritise putting...
Alright, so I pointed at that splitter a bit sooner than I thought. I thought I stood there for a while before I did anything, but apparently I didn't. So I actually pointed at the splitter here. So ideally I'd like that to be here. And if I pull that back, it's presumably going to lead to him jumping around a bit again.
The other problem with a recipe...
Yeah, like that. Okay, well, I'm just going to put in another jump cut as well. So grab that bit over to there, stretch it out like that. Yeah, I agree, and I think TV shows and films tend to do hard cuts unless it's between sort of from a scene somewhere to something completely separate. And this is still talking about the same sort of thing, so I feel that I think that's reasonable. And also, it's YouTube. Jump cuts are fairly standard on YouTube.
The other problem with a recipe that produces lots of outputs is keeping everything in balance. As you can see, we currently have too many green circuits, which is preventing the red circuits from flowing. We also have far too much spoilage, as we're not using it for anything at the moment. However, Sophia has set up a system here to dump excess spoilage into a heating tower for disposal. The splitter is set to prioritise putting the spoilage on the starboard output, meaning that we'll only ever see any on the port side when we're monitoring it, if there's an excess, and it backs up.
Right, so another flub in the
If there's an excess.
another flub in the narration there. So I need to get rid of that bit. Bring us in.
Monitoring it, if there's an excess and it backs up.
There we go.
If we ever see any there, it'll trigger the inserters to load the heating tower and burn off some.
So that's happening too soon as well. I don't want the belt shenanigans to happen yet. This is far too long a pause. Let's get rid of that.
Heating tower and burn off some of the excess. I'm not sure why he's done it like this, rather than just running the low... priority side directly into the heating tower like this. But the system he's built will also work fine, so there's no point in changing it. Even though I just did.
Right, okay, so that's not quite in time, and there's a bit of
Running the low
nonsense in there. So I don't want from there
priority side directly into the heating tower
to about there.
like this.
Get rid of that bit.
Rather than just running the low priority side directly into the heating tower like this. But the system he's built will...
There we go. So that's done. That's the bit where things are happening. But that's taken slightly too long because I said
like this.
At this point. So it kind of needs to finish there. So at this point I'm going to speed the video up a little bit. And I'm going to make sure the audio doesn't go squeaky. Do that.
Rather than just running the low priority side directly into the heating tower like this. But
there we go. So now that's run through a bit more quickly, so it fits up, it syncs up with the video a bit better. Now I've got a gap over here that I need to deal with.
Load the heating tower and burn off some of the excess. I'm not sure why he's done it like this, rather than inserters to load the heating.
I have frequently seen in-game mistakes. I've never gone in and actually fixed them immediately because we don't do anything between streams. So there've been a number of times when I've noted mistakes and I've mentioned it to the rest of the group, put it in on the document as a thing to be fixed in the next stream. So I've certainly done that. And back when I was playing solo games, and sometimes I would play a bit. I would actually play a little bit during the recording, and then save that, and then save again afterwards to say this is something I've done. However, I tend to cheat quite a lot in the when I'm making videos, as I was demonstrating in the. When I was actually recording this bit, I did some things like I pulled up some belts to grab some plastic bottles off them to force a shortage because I'd said about that in the script, or I'll have always day turned on, or I'm quite happy to cheat a bit to get the look that I'm going for if it allows me to explain what we did better. If it allows me to explain what we did in the streams in a better way. However, I wouldn't then carry those cheats on into the actual main official game. So I can go in and mess around with this however I want, or I might go in and I might blow something up. I might remove some things. I might move things around. I might dump things somewhere where they're not supposed to be, for safe in the knowledge that I'm not going to save that. And it's just, yes, it'll be a mess in that particular game that's open, but it doesn't matter because it's not going to affect the video. And for example, if I wanted to get this flowing again, I might just go, okay, well, I'll just dump all of these green belts I might just dump all these green circuits onto the belt next to it because that'll get rid of them, and I don't care that I pollute the red belt because I want to just make these machines up here run. That's the sort of thing that I would quite happily do making a video, but of course wouldn't do in the actual games that we're saving. So yeah, I've never fixed anything when making a video for Planetary Pioneers or for the K2SE run because they were multiplayer ones. But I will sometimes I'll fix a thing on screen like I did with that with this belt here. And then maybe try and remember to do that when we're playing it again properly. Although in this case it doesn't matter because it works as it is. Right, so I want to extend this as well to fill that gap.
And it backs up.
So
If we ever see any there, it'll trigger the inserters to load the heating tower and burn off some of the excess. I'm not sure why he's done it like this, rather than just running the low priority side directly into the heating tower like this, but the system he's built will also work fine, so there's no point in changing it, even though I just did. To get this working again...
Where am I at this point? Even though okay, right, to get this working again.
No, I just did. To get this...
I'll leave that slight pause in there because I've said something silly and mildly humorous, so I'll leave room for applause and laughter, as it were.
Again, we'll
And
set
just
something
timing.
to dispose of the excess green circuits, again just like on Fulgora, to allow the red circuits to keep flowing. And maybe we'll need the same for the plastic bottles as well in the future. We shall see. Still, that is red circuits being made, at least in theory.
Right, I've moved on again too soon. This is turning into a bit of a habit. I'm gonna cut that there, and then lose a bit of that. Move it over here out the way somewhere. This bit is the next chapter, so I'm going to cut out that pause, like that, and then this will. Same sort of trick again. Bring us over here, and see if that looks okay.
As well in the future. We shall see. Still, that is red circuits being made, at least in theory. I guess we better go and look at the fish.
Yeah, I've been slightly careless about waiting for the notifications down here to disappear before starting recording. Sometimes I'm a little bit impatient, shall we say. Especially it sometimes seems to take quite a long time to disappear. Right, so this should be another 10 frames like that. This should be cut in the same place. Oh, I did. I actually clicked in the right place. That's amazing. That should be 10 frames later, like that. And then we're going to do that and that. One of the weird things about zooming in Kden Live is it only zooms in one dimension. So it'll stretch out the timeline, but it doesn't get any taller or shorter vertically, which is sensible. It's what you actually want, but it makes it weird and hard to tell how zoomed in you are and when you're dragging out at 20 frames or whatever. It's weird. Right, so that also needs to be 10 frames. That one's 20. So, right, and now this is chapter 2, turbo breeding. So I'm going to need another. I'm going to need another chapter title. So duplicate that, and then edit it. There we go. That can go in here. No, don't snap. Yep, snap to that. That's good. And then we use the chapter title overlay like that. Overlay effects. That's what the word I was looking for. So to bring right now, we need to go and look for when I investigated the fish, which seems to be here. And I want to find more or less the beginning of where it's stable, because then I've got as much video as possible to play with after that point. So drag it back over here. Zoom. Fade in and audio fade in. Right, and now we have the fish.
Ingredient 3 is the infamous turbo fish, and this one has a couple of loops in it just to keep us guessing. The actual fish breeding stage seems fairly simple.
Right, let's cut out that bit. So go from there to there. So rather than having me finding the item in the screens there, let's have it just appear as if by magic. Like
the
that.
actual fish breeding stage seems fairly simple. We need some harrying gas, but that's okay. Tristan's pumping that in from the mines in the north. We need a source fish, not a fish source, or 2, but it produces 3, so that seems sustainable. And then we need a protein shake. I've not seen any cows around here, so I don't think we'll be using whey protein, but I guess we're going to have to trace that one back and see where it comes from.
Right, again, I clicked too soon, so...
I've not seen any cows around here, so I don't think we'll be using whey.
So I want to cut from there, and we'll just jump to having that one open, I think.
But I guess we're going to have to trace that one back and see where it comes from. Okay, protein shakes are complicated.
And that goes there, and as before, I'm just going to extend this again. This is how I will typically fix this sort of problem when I've been a little bit impatient. I think because I will sort of read through the script fairly slowly in my head as I'm recording it, but because I think I was trying to talk to you guys a bit as well and a few things like that, it's a little bit slightly sloppier than I normally am.
I've not seen any cows around
and that's
here,
saying
so
something.
I don't think we'll be using whey protein, but I guess we're going to have to trace that one back and see where it comes from. Okay, protein shakes are complicated. They require the plastic bottles that we saw coming out from the residue scraping. At least that's a solved problem. Then some beta-carotene, also solved. Then it gets a bit harder. We need protein powder and calcium. It looks like the protein powder can only be made by...
Right, that was
powder
fairly close actually. So we'll cut from there to there.
It looks like the protein powder can only be made by processing a turbo fish. And this is about the point where Mike started to worry about production levels. If making a fish requires protein, and protein requires fish, is it going to be sustainable? Fortunately, 1 fish makes 5 protein, and 4 protein makes 1 shake makes 1 fish. So each time the loop runs, we'll gain 1 protein powder or a quarter of a shake. It's not a lot, but at least it's on the right side of 0. Armed with this positive...
it can be it gets a little grating occasionally, hearing myself saying the same things over and over again as I'm editing it, but most of the time I'm not listening to the same bit over and over. I'm only doing that when there's a particularly difficult part of the video, and when I am doing that, it means I'm concentrating on the difficult part of the video, so there's a bit of a distraction there. I guess it's one of those things, you just get used to it. When I first started making videos, hearing my voice sounded weird because you don't normally hear your own voice. But now that I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years, whatever it is, I'm used to it. I know what I sound like. I'm fine with it. But yeah, I tend not to try not to loop around too much on the same bits. That would get a little bit grating. But then that's be the same for anything you're listening to. Right. Started building. Proof of concept. Mike's proof of concept. Where did Mike prove his concept? Here we go. Yeah. Oh. Bad mouse skills there. Right. Get rid of that bit.
0. Armed with this positive outlook, he started building, and here you can see his early proof of concept design. The fish are happily breeding up at the top, then being turned into protein powder, which can be shaken up. Then being turned into protein powder in the middle, which can be shaken up at the top, then being turned into...
Yeah, there we go. I decided to rephrase that a little bit on the fly. Sometimes I do change the script as I'm reading it because I feel like there's a way that I would like to tweak something and say it slightly differently, and like it be if I rephrase it slightly, or or there's something in there that doesn't sound quite right when it's said out loud. And I do read the script sort of out loud under my breath when I finished editing them, just to run through and see what they actually sound like. And at that point, I do tend to make some edits. But even so, sometimes when I come to record and just actually say them into the microphone, there are some other tweaks that I like to make.
Breeding up at the top, and then being turned into protein powder in the middle.
That needs a bit more of a gap there.
Breeding up at the top, and then being turned into protein powder in the middle, which can be shaken up below. Mike informs me that this design is nicely to ratio, but unfortunately we can't really tell at the moment.
Oh yes, this was the bottles hadn't run out, despite me saying in the script that they had run out. So we hung around for a bit at this point and waited for them to actually run out, with a little bit of help from me stealing them. Now here we go. This is where it says game speed at 1 in the bottom corner there. I decided, do I care about that? I mean, I could cut it there, I suppose. Let's get rid of that bit. Let's see how that looks.
Or a quarter of a shape. It's not a lot, but at least it's on the right side of 0. Armed with this positive outlook, he started building, and here you can see his early proof of concept design. The fish are happily breeding up at the top, and then being turned into protein powder in the middle, which can be shaken.
That's not remotely long enough. So at this point, I could take that bit at the beginning and just duplicate it again and again and again and again until it fills the right amount of time. I don't really want to do that though, because it's going to be if you repeat something repeatedly, if you repeat something over and over again, I think it becomes a lot more obvious, and it certainly bothers me. So let's actually go back, undo that, put that bit back in again, and then keep a chunk of the old one until I'm talking about the bit at the bottom, and then the protein, and then the empty plastic bottles can just magically disappear before we start looking at that bit, and hopefully nobody will notice.
Up at the top, and then being turned into protein powder in the middle, which can be shaken up below. Mike informs me that this design is nicely to ratio, but unfortunately we can't really tell.
So if I do that
in the middle, which can be shaken up below.
You saw nothing.
This design is nicely to ratio, but unfortunately we can't really tell at the moment because of the shortage of plastic bottles coming through due to the excess of green circuits. Ah, he's even making the access.
Alright, let's try and get that zoom a little bit more nicely timed. So from there, I think we can jump to that from here. But I'd like this to be a little bit longer first. So we'll do that again.
Plastic bottles coming through due to the excess of green circuits. Ah, he's even making the access keys in the middle as requested. This is a good proof of concept. The output is...
Yeah, this is stream 49 that I'm recording from. That this bit of the recording is from. I think we did stream 52 the day before yesterday. So yeah, this is quite old. But then I want to be in a position where, well, ideally I want to be in a position where I have lots of videos buffered up, so that if I go on holiday, there isn't a gap. Unfortunately, I keep going on holiday, and in order for there not to be a gap, my buffers disappear. But the other part of that is that I want to have plenty of content that we've worked on ready to make into videos. So ideally, I will make at least 2 videos from each stream. Ideally, maybe 3, and then a few extra ones here and there, just to pad it out a little bit further. So, in an ideal world, I would have a buffer that is gradually getting slightly longer and longer and longer. And this does mean I get comments on videos every so often saying, "Hey, we've seen this is from ages ago. We've seen how you fixed this problem." But that's okay. The videos are not meant to be coming out immediately after the stream they're talking about, because I used to do that with the K2SE run, and it nearly drove me insane. It the pressure of trying to do a stream on Monday and then release the videos from it on Thursday and Friday is not fun, should we say? Especially once I start doing a show again and start having rehearsals on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I don't have those evenings anymore. It doesn't work. So they have to be a bit decoupled for my sanity to have any chance of keeping up. Right,
The output is being produced as requested, but it's not big or powerful in the middle as requested. This is a good proof of concept. The output is being produced as requested, but it's not big or powerful enough, and it's not being clever about machine use. Let's skip forward a week. This is much better. You can see the addition.
Right, so we're skipping. This is where we are into the time machine, also known as wait for the game to load, and then find our way to the correct part of the factory, and like that. Yeah, and again, you've got the games, you've got the day, always day, game speed apparently, and various people joining and leaving the game as well, which is again not ideal, but I feel that having that popping up in the corner is not a serious problem. So get rid of that chunk while we're loading the new version, and there's still quite a bit left over here. At this point, I can mouse over these things, see how much time is left on them. So I've got 7 minutes and 43 seconds left of the video, and 3.5 minutes left of the audio. So there's 3.5 more minutes of video that need to be edited, and in the process of doing that, I'll condense down the video from 7 minutes to 3.5 minutes, presumably, or maybe slightly less because I'll lose a little bit of the audio as I edit it. It is still it's still a hair over 10 minutes. That's cutting it a bit finer than I'd like to. Well, I suspect I might have to put a little bit of padding on the end of this to make this into an actual 10-minute video, which is a shame. I don't like to do that, but I don't know if this is true, because most things people say about YouTube and the algorithm and what it likes and what it doesn't like are just made up. But I think I've heard that it considers sub 10-minute videos to almost be a different category to over 10-minute videos. And also, I know that I'm often not scared off, but sometimes put off a little bit if a video from a channel I'm not already a big fan of is more than half an hour. I'll go, I can't be bothered to watch that much about whatever the topic is. So I feel that aiming for about 10 minutes is quite a good target.
Machine use. Let's skip forward a week. This is much better. You can.
Yeah, that's very true, Mike. Yes, the YouTube algorithm is not static. And also, my videos used to be aiming between 20 and 30 minutes, and often went a little bit over because I ramble. So the sudden switch from making 25-30 minute videos to making 12-minute videos, I don't know. Is that going to be good or not? I probably should go and look at the viewer numbers, and then. The other thing is, the main thing that YouTube likes is time that people have viewed for, so maybe I should be thinking about that instead, or, to be honest, I don't think I should be thinking about it too much. I should be just trying to make good videos and not worry about it. That sounds about right, Tommy, yes, it's just all nonsense. I think basically, as long as you try to make videos if you make videos that people will want to watch, then you're probably doing the right thing and will probably do reasonably well from it. The tricky part is just, doing that.
The additional machines at every stage, and if we look.
Stops moving around. Stand still, for goodness sake.
This is much better.
Right, so this wants one of those fade out, fade back in jumps I was talking about. So let's go for 10 frames each way. That's 2/3 of a second for the whole thing.
Skip forward a week.
There we go. So that fade to black and back in again gives the impression of you've now moved to something that's a bit more different than just the hard cuts we've been doing at other times. And I think that's quite good. And I think that's it's a visual language that I've certainly tried to follow. And so hopefully people who follow my channel will be familiar with it. We shall see. Yeah, I think I'd much rather, from what Mike's saying there, I would much rather do number 2, doing what you enjoy, and hope that'll come through in the quality of the videos. And that's largely what I've been doing. I think it's better to just try and make something that's good, and if you build it, they'll come. Consistency is absolutely important, that's very true. I have noticed that if I skip a stream, the week after, numbers are much lower than they were the week before, and that seems to be a fairly hard and fast rule. Now, with people subscribing to channels, hopefully, I hope you're all subscribed to the channel, they will be shown the videos anyway. It's not like in the olden days of when you used to read webcomics and you had to go to the site and before RSS feeds were a common thing, where you'd go, okay, so I know this one updates on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for example, and if you went there and they hadn't updated on the Monday and the Wednesday, you might not bother going back on the Friday because you think, okay, they're taking a hiatus or something. So it's not quite as vital as it was for that sort of thing, because with the subscription system and also probably, I imagine, with the homepage feed, if they know you like my videos, hopefully my videos will appear on your homepage feed, even if there's been a brief hiatus. But also, maybe if there's been a bit of a brief hiatus, YouTube will go, oh, people haven't been watching your videos as much recently. You must have got rubbish. So I don't know, but I'm just going to keep keeping the videos coming out at a decent rate as much as I can. Yes, consistency is important to me.
This is much better. You can see the additional machines at every stage, and if we look more closely,
Right, I had a zoom for this.
if we look more, and if we plants for biochambers. This works really nicely. Biochambers.
I would like to have that as an actual zoom rather than, but I don't think I realistically can, or at least not with the footage I've got. Actually, what I could do, if I take from here to here. Right, where was it?
And if we look more closely,
right, it was here. Let's see how.
And if we look more closely, you can see that most of the fish breeders
that's
have
right.
their chemical plants swapped out for biochambers. This works really nicely because the biochambers can be fueled with the protein shakes as well, so we don't need to worry about it. Works really nicely.
So grab that bit for when I talk about fueling.
The biochambers can be fueled with the protein shakes as well, so we don't need to worry about an additional nutrient supply. And happily, due to the efficiency modules in there...
Oh, no, this is when I wanted to jump to the other biochamber. Like this. Yes, because I realised that the protein shakes weren't making it all the way down the row, because oh yeah, we're short of calcite at this point. That was why.
This works really nicely because the biochambers can be fueled with the protein shakes.
That's a slightly abrupt cut there. I don't really like that, but it's not. It is what it is, as they say. It cuts to what I want to show.
Because the biochambers can be fueled with the protein shakes as well, so we don't need to worry about an additional nutrient supply. And happily, due to the efficiency modules in there, the shakes last for ages. The additional
and you can see here how long the shake is lasting. That's really good. Yeah. This I actually talk about that in a moment, Board Easy. Yeah, so these systems, if this bit, these protein shakes just get completely consumed but in the production of the fish. These ones get used up as fuel and then the empty plastic bottles are returned. I think I talk about that in a moment though. But
it's really nicely because the biochambers can be fueled with the protein shakes as well, so we don't need to worry about an additional nutrient supply. And happily, due to the efficiency modules in there, the shakes last for ages. The additional 50% productivity from the biochamber ages. The additional 50% productivity from the biochamber more than covers the fuel cost. So we end up with extra protein shakes in the end, and biochambers mean no electricity cost. They are entirely powered by protein shakes. A side note of this, however, is that whilst the protein shakes are consumed fully during the fish breeding process,
there we go.
The ones powering the biochambers do return their plastic bottles for refilling. And with the current design, refilling, and
No, delete that one. There we go.
do return their plastic bottles for refilling, and with the current design side loading onto the belt, that's going to jam up quite soon. That'll need to be swapped out for a priority splitter. Continuing to the south, we see that the
It's still the same chapter. Okay, we'll make that a slightly shorter pause then.
out for a priority splitter. Continuing to the south, we see that the assembler making the access keys has been replaced with a pair of forges.
Where do I continue? Oops, there you go. I like to have some of the moves in the shown in there, particularly if I'm talking about going off to somewhere else. I think that works quite nicely, like this.
Continuing to the south, we see that the assembler making the access keys has been replaced.
Until that happens, let's put a cut for that. Getting rid of the getting caught on the belts there. Okay, maybe this is about the best I can do.
Making the access keys has been replaced.
How does that look?
That the assembler making the access keys
That's
has
not
been
too bad.
replaced with a pair of forges because the access keys count as a military device. This gives us a free 25%.
Okay, I need to be looking at the forges stats for this bit, which I think I'll do.
If you look close,
There.
this gives us a free 25% productivity on them, which is nice, and we've topped that up further with a module for a total of 35%. If you look...
I'll jump to here.
If you look closely, you'll also see there's a degradation module from Pelagos tucked in there too, because we don't want the 25% quality buff.
It's not a 25% quality buff you get from these, it's a 10%? 12%?
Because we don't want the...
So I edited that. I realised that as I was saying it. Not when I was reading it, but I realised it as I was saying it, so I corrected myself there.
tucked in there too, because we don't want the 25% quality buff. Because we don't want the quality buff that the forges give.
Like that. So just leave it open. Don't specify, because
Too, because we
I
don't
don't
want
think
the
it is
quality buff that the
25%.
forges give. We'd like to have everything at normal quality so the turrets and later buildings, which we'll talk about in another video, don't get confused. This is the sort of place I was thinking of when I mentioned the degradation modules in the last series. They're quite niche, but they're very useful when you need them. You can see that we now have a healthy supply of red circuits.
Not sure I go as far as to call that a healthy supply, but we certainly have a supply of red circuits coming in. Yeah, I really should put the belt immunity in, especially given that I never actually need to be use a belt to give me a bit of extra speed because I'm so fast with a number of exoskeletons. Problem is, the belt immunity equipment is a silly shape and size, and therefore doesn't really fit nicely into the armour that I've got. I'd have to lose a personal laser defense or something like that, or a battery to get it in there.
You can see that we now have a healthy supply of red circuits and bottles coming in, so the access cards are heading out and going to feed the turrets that are capturing the vaults. Lovely. In fact, we've even made enough of them, they've backed up all the way down one of the belts. Capturing the vaults. Heading out and going...
Right, I want to jump to here. I do feel some of these bits I might have... Maybe I was talking a little bit too quickly, and if I slowed... If I had been talking... I don't know whether it's because I had an audience, which is a silly thing to say because I'm making the video for an audience, but perhaps because I was doing it on stream I talked more quickly because I thought I need to get back to doing the streaming. I don't really know. It's come out at about the sort of length I was expecting, but it's about a minute and a half shorter, so that's a good 10% faster than I was expecting it to be. I think maybe I was speaking a little bit faster than normal, but oh well.
You can see that we now have a healthy supply of red circuits and bottles coming in, so the access cards are heading out and going to feed the turrets that are capturing the vaults. Lovely. In fact, we've even made enough of them, they've backed up all the way down one of the belts.
This bit certainly felt like I was saying it a bit. I was reading it. I was talking a bit faster than I normally do. It's sort of it's a feeling. It's hard to say for sure, but it kind of felt that way. All right. Anyway, second. Right. So this chapter, duplicate, is called calcination. You go here. You cut the. There, and that one will definitely go there. This one will be cut to somewhere else. We'll find out where in a moment. That's a chapter title, so we'll do that. $20. And to be honest, I think if I did leave one of these at 19, I don't think anybody would notice. But you know, try and get it right. Right, so back to the back down to the protein powder production. No, protein shake production. Is this it? Yeah, that's it. That's up to there. 20. 10. Okay.
The perspicacious among you will remember that I've missed an ingredient. I got a little bit too excited about the fish, and so we better go back to where we make the shape. This recipe also requires calcite, and whilst there is some trickling through, that's not what I call a healthy supply. Calcite is another resource which has a special Robascan recipe. Up here to the north, Sophia is bringing in the purple rock Haronite, along with some sulfuric acid, which is made in the traditional way from sulfur, iron and water.
Oh, I did a much better framing on that somewhere. Yeah, here.
And trickling through. That's not what I call a healthy supply. Calcite is another resource which has a special Robascan.
Let's cut it in there. Remove that space.
Through. That's not what I call a healthy supply. Calcite is another resource which has a special Robascan recipe. Up here to the north, Sophia is bringing in the purple rock Haronite, along with some sulfuric acid, which is made in the traditional way from sulfur, iron and water, and all of these are produced from volts. We can then wash the purple off this Haronite rock to get some normal rock. Okay, why not? And then the leftover purple appears to consist of the valuable calcite and a bit of Harrying gas byproduct. I knew there was a reason we weren't filling the tanks completely. That's another one that needs a header tank. This is running a lot slower than I would like because of a major shortage of Haronite, and that's rippling through to base.
Okay, Mike. Well, thanks for dropping in. I don't know how interesting you found seeing me making these videos is, because you've already encountered at least a bit of this process before. But, well, thank you for dropping in anyway.
Everything we care about on this planet. And this shows the other difficulty of this planet, apart from the power cap. The valuable resources come from volts, and capturing and keeping volts requires a certain amount of effort.
Right, I then went off to look for a vault, I believe. Yes, like this. That. There we go.
Of this planet, apart from the power cap. The valuable resources come from volts, and capturing and keeping volts requires a certain amount of effort, and at the moment is a bit of a struggle. We'll be looking into ways to improve our volt access quite soon though. Having that level of stability is going to be extremely important in making this planet able to look after itself, at least to a reasonable extent. That'll all be in a future video though, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. We'll be back streaming on Monday at 7:30 PM.
Ooh. Right, so at this point I need to go on screen overlay.
We'll be back
here. One says when things happen, like that.
We'll be back streaming on Monday at 7:30 PM UK time, and maybe we'll have finished Robasca by then. There's only one way to find out. I'll also be streaming something else on Wednesday, maybe another LucasArts adventure game, maybe another Factorio mod, we shall see. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Right, and then you have the outro as well. So we've got the thanking all the various supporters, which scrolls through. That's jumped up a bit. That's appeared a bit too soon. I think I might drag this at least to
reasonable extent. That'll all be in a future video though, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. We'll be back streaming on Monday at 7.
Here. Yeah, if I drag that to here, then the supporter stuff doesn't appear until we've got the until I've already started doing outro shenanigans, which I think is reasonable. I can then cut that back up to there, so it matches the end point there, and this one to here. And with that,
2 p.m.
probably.
UK time, and maybe we'll have finished Rabaska by now.
Did I flub
There's
anything
only
along
one way
here?
to find out. I'll also be streaming something else on Wednesday, maybe another LucasArts adventure game, maybe another Factorio mod, we shall see. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Right, so the closing logo and planet and stuff is a bit late there, but I think that's I'm sort of okay with that because it means I can cut the supporters scroll in at a slightly more reasonable time rather than having it appear while I'm still talking about the planet. Right, so that's the sort of the first pass through, I guess. That's very true. That makes a lot of sense, Quagor. Yes, if I've got the camera frozen on an area because I'm talking about it for a moment or two, yes, it's a lot more interesting to sort of to track these things. And go, what's all this stuff doing, or what's this doing down here? While you're waiting for me to finish talking about the washing the purple off the rocks, and then rather than being stuck, rather than just having a load of machines with a bot swarm flying over it. So yeah, I think that makes sense. The spaghetti is a bit more interesting to see. But then you go, why is there a bit of pipe like that? Oh, it's because this one needs to go into the bottom of that machine, and then it comes across here, but it can't then jump across to here because the sulfuric acid's in the way. And rather than moving that one up, he's just gone in from up there, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Right, so that's the I don't know what pass that is. I suppose the first pass is writing the script, the second pass is recording the video, the third pass is recording the audio, the fourth pass is aligning the audio and the video, which is what I've done now. So the fifth pass is to then go and watch through it all again and decide essentially what special effects do I want to do. Where do I want to have zooms and arrows and shenanigans and stuff like that. So let's try it and see what we find. Although, you know what, I'm just going to save that first because that always seems like a good idea. To be fair, Caden Live's autosave is very, very good. About when I first started using it 4 or 5 years ago, the software wasn't very stable, but fortunately, it's the only thing that was worse than the only thing that was more noticeable than its bad stability was how good its autosave was. So even though it would crash from time to time, I don't think I ever lost more than 1 click of work, which is quite impressive.
We've seen where the resources come from on Rabaska, but what are they used for? In today's episode of Laurence Plays Factorio Planetary Pioneers, we're going to look at how I've been bullying Mike by sending him off on a much longer chain of requirements than we expected. This all started because hacking the vaults is very temporary. We've set up automated systems to rehack the vaults, but it's a hassle, and to make things worse, it requires a steady stream of the vault access keys. Whilst we...
That felt a bit too jumpy around, even by... I know I said I'd rather have the vault keys going through, but no, I think I don't like that. I'm going to... fudge this together somehow like that. And have I got enough of it? Let's find out. See how that goes. This also allows me to review any of the decisions I've made in the previous run through as well. Yes, exactly. It saved. It always only ever seemed to lose the thing that actually made it crash. The thing you'd done immediately before that always seemed to somehow be recoverable, which is very impressive.
Started because hacking the vaults is very temporary. We've set up automated systems to rehack the vaults, but it's a hassle, and to make things worse, it requires a steady stream of the vault access keys.
Ah, that was the bit I didn't want to pop up. I didn't want the mining drill to appear. Can I pull that one backwards? How does this look?
To make things worse, it requires a steady stream of the vault access. To make things worse, it requires...
Kind of. If I do it here, maybe I can have it cut to the point where there's no combat happening.
And to make things...
Not quite, no. Maybe I'll just go with that anyway.
And to make things worse... And to make things worse, it
That'll
requires
do.
a steady stream of the vault access keys. Whilst we can obtain those through mining Basque and scrap, that's not a good long-term solution for several reasons. Firstly, you won't...
Right, here we go. So this is the point where I've got some details over here that I would like the viewer to be able to see. So I'll put in a transform effect like that. I'll say I want to go from there to there. I would like to zoom to 200% and on the right-hand side of the screen. So we now go.
Firstly, you only get a key from about 10% of the mining attempts. The rest end up being weak ammo, which we don't need. Secondly,
This one I'm going to continue. I'm just going to be zoomed in already because I was before that happened. But I'll be focused slightly more on centered slightly more on where we're actually seeing things. That text is still quite small. It's tempting to zoom in even further, but I think the quality at that point is going to be so bad that it's probably not worth it. So we'll go with this.
the rest end up being weak ammo, which we don't need. Secondly, the patches are relatively small and don't contain all that many keys. We need some kind of automated solution. So, I asked Mike to start making me some vault access keys from raw materials, and while he was doing it...
So let's zoom back out here, just because 100% feels like I feel like 100% should be the default zoom level. Like that.
automated solution. So, I asked Mike to start making me some vault access keys from raw materials, and while he was doing that, I dealt with the excess ammo he accumulated. Step 1 was a simple sortometron to separate out the access keys and all of the ammo here, giving each one its own belt. This was at the point when I thought we might actually want some of this stuff, but in the end though, I just dumped all of these belts straight into the recycling system. It was originally quite a small and neat recycling system, but a lot of expansion happened rather suddenly because we needed a lot of vault access keys before production was running nicely. The recycling felt very wasteful, but it did give us a useful source of iron plate from the yellow
Right, I need some arrows in here, I think, to point out the things that I'm talking about. So this will be from the... no, line up, there we go. From the yellow ammo.
iron plates from the yellow magazines.
Oop, missed. Copy. Paste. Rockets are those ones.
This was fun. Rockets and the grenade.
And then again here for the grenades down here. I can rotate the arrows as well, and I often do, but for this one, for this particular instance, I think having just pointing straight into the recyclers that are dealing with those things is fine.
Iron plates from the yellow magazines, rockets and the grenades. This was fed out onto the bus, but
Cut those there so they disappear again, and you know, let's be fancy. Let's put a 10 frame fade out on them as well.
this was fed out onto the bus.
Right, at this point, I do want to have another arrow. Flip that one round. Fed out onto the bus happens here.
This was fed onto the bus.
So up to there. And so I want to put another keyframe there, and I'll just have the arrow shoot off side of the screen like that.
This was fed out onto the bus, but initially...
That's a bit quick. Let's try that.
This was fed out onto the bus, but initially we didn't have much use for it, so there's an overflow of that into recyclers as well.
I'll put in another one of these ones into these recyclers.
We didn't have much use for it, so there's an overflow of that into recyclers as well.
Dead. There we go.
I'm sure we won't regret throwing away all this perfectly good ammunition. Okay, back to Mike. Making a vault access keys.
Right, and this is a recipe, so that means we want to zoom in on the recipe so we can tell what it is. And this is want to be able to see what it's making. So we wanted the vault access keys title at the top and the full list of ingredients. There's nothing else down there. So yeah, here is probably about the right place to put it. Let's roughly centre it. There we go.
Okay, back to mine. Making a vault access key seems relatively straightforward. All you need is some beta-carotene, which we're already making. You saw Tristan set up for that in the last video. Some red circuits, which are a pretty standard resource. How hard can it be? And finally some turbofish.
So here I could put arrows in, popping up for each of the things that I'm talking about, but I like to credit my audience with having at least some intelligence and the ability to read 3 ingredients off an ingredients list, so I don't think we need that in there.
These critters live in the lakes of energetic residue, and we've seen fish breeding in the past, so surely the turbo version will be even quicker. Let's take a look at making red circuits first, though. On Rabaska, this is done by skimming the energetic residue.
Should that be a little bit more of a gap there, do you think?
Quicker. Let's take a look at making red circuits.
Because I've gone from talking about the fish, talking about the fish, and then going, actually no, let's talk about the red circuits. Maybe a little bit of a, maybe I should pull that part apart a little bit more. I feel that might be a good idea. So I cut. I'm never quite sure how to insert a space, because there is an insert space option, but it only ever seems to work when you can find an actual. What if I do it here? Insert space. All tracks, sure. Ah, that did work. Cool. So I've learned something today. I now know how to do that. So I don't want it to be that much bigger. That was just an arbitrary amount of space. So if I then pull that back in pull it out by, say, a half a second there, that's probably going to be enough. And then I can remove space in all tracks, and it won't work because of the audio one down there. But if I do that, remove space in all tracks, boom, there we go. And then I can extend that one. And we can carry on watching the fish for a moment.
Even quicker. Let's take a look at making red circuits first, though.
I think that feels like a good pause at that point, and it makes the video slightly longer, which I think that's a reasonable length of pause before we then jump back to here is the previous thing I was just talking about, and we're going to have another look at that. I hope you can read, Doopy. I am aware that some people... no, actually, I was going to say some people watch my videos when they're falling asleep. No, that's not quite true. Some people have my streams playing when they're falling asleep, because they're a bit longer. So they probably won't be reading at that point, but the videos... we'll go with... We'll do what we can. We'll help people's hands as much as we reasonably can.
Red circuits first, though. On Rabaska, this is done by skimming the energetic residue. I guess it's a bit like a liquid version of the Fulgor scrap. We're doing that in these assemblers here. It takes in 100, but you get 90% of that back, so we need some header tanks to make sure there's always some...
Right, that's looking at a recipe again. Let's have a zoom.
100, but you get here. It takes...
No, 200, not 20. And we want to zoom in on the actual recipe. That's this bit. And let's put it up there in the corner, because then you can still see the machines over here. You can't quite see the tank that I'm going to talk about in a moment, but you can see the machines at least, so that's pretty good. I've got a lot of mouse cursors suddenly. I don't know why there's so many of them showing up when I'm on this window. It must be capturing something in OBS that's capturing the mouse cursors. I don't know. I have no idea why it's like that.
We're doing that in these assemblers here. It takes in 100, but you get 90.
That's a very slow zoom. That should be a not necessarily quite a crash zoom, but a quick zoom.
It takes in 100.
There we go. That's better.
You get 90% of that back, so we need some header tanks to make sure there's always somewhere for the assemblers to drain out into. But that's a problem involved in the past. It's just a pump and a cable.
Right. Okay. That. We want to pan across to here. And I'm going to put an arrow in, because even though it's fairly obvious what it is, which there are 2 tanks on screen at this point, so I think it'd be good to have that one pointed to. So I'll rotate you to, that'll do as an angle. Point it at that. Now, where does the move stop? This is where the move stops. Excellent. So we'll put in a keyframe here, and then this is where the tank first appears. So if I have the arrow on top of it at this point, and then just cut that back to there, will that look reasonable?
Drain out into. But that's a problem we solve.
That was a very bouncy move. Okay, let's turn that into a linear linear pan.
Drain out into. But that's a problem we solve.
What are you doing? Why are you being weird?
That's a
Oh, it's probably because the other pan is also a what do you call it? A smooth one. So let's make all of this linear for now. Then hopefully it'll be easy to match them up.
But that's a problem we solved in the past.
It's almost close enough. Where's it pointed to there? Right. Okay. So if I go back to the beginning of this, that's actually pointing to there. It's easy to get sort of fall into a bit of a rabbit hole. Yeah, I'm sure I have, Quagar. I've just not been looking. I've not been looking over at the OBS feed. Let's hide some stuff that might be causing it. So, let's hide all of the games that may be doing big full screeny things. Foundry, KSP. How about now? Nope, still there. If I turn off this one, will it go down to being two? Yeah, so you see they're still appearing here, even though they're not over... There's two there for reasons that I don't entirely understand. So let's have that back again. No, I don't know, I'm afraid. For some reason... OBS is showing my mouse cursor multiple times rather than just capturing them from the screen. I'm afraid I don't know what to do to make that better. It's just going to have to stay. Yes, my videos are definitely aimed at people who have played a decent amount of Factorio, so they understand how the game works. They just might need occasionally things pointing out which particular thing I'm talking about, or recipes zooming in on so you can tell which one, what goes into this weird thing that I'm talking about that you've never heard of. Okay, as long as it's fine for you, or as long as you can tell what I'm doing, I think it's okay. Right.
But that's a problem we solved in the past. It's just a pump and cable. Solved in the past.
Right, and then I say.
Just a pump.
I say pump here, so let's go up to there. So
Problem we solved in the past. It's just a pump and cable.
That'll do.
Then yes,
yeah, presumably it's always the it is the currently it seems to be the middle one, the bottom one of the pair. That's ridiculous. Is that the same over here? I'm on the lightning bolt now. No. Oh. It's almost as if one of them is right for each screen. That's very strange. Yeah, it must be. It must be one from each screen. And they're just not... The mouse cursors aren't disappearing when they go off the edge of the screen. So maybe... It's bottom left I really care about. Maybe if we go to main... Can I edit this one and tell it to... I can tell this one to not capture cursor. And tell top left to not capture cursor. Right, so now there's only one. Right. Oh, let's move bottom left screen to up there. Right, now there's only one cursor. It's not in quite the right place, but in fact it's in really the wrong place on this screen. I don't know. It just doesn't. It's so all three of the screens are capturing the cursor, and then when the cursor goes off that screen, they remember where it is off the screen or how far it is off the screen in whatever direction, and then sort of make it up and still display it in the wrong place. So it's really stupid, but it's now in the correct place for this screen, and it'll be in the wrong place for the other two. I think that might be the best I can do, sorry. It's weird, it's capturing the cursor as a separate thing, not as part of capturing the screen. So, I'll say, very strange. Anyway,
then,
onwards.
Yes, about 1 run in 20.
Okay, we need to pan back across at this point. Let's make you slightly shorter, and then this one we can have a point there and a point, there, where we pan back across to. I think that's about where we were before.
It's just a pump and cable. Then, yes, about 1 run in 20, we'll get a red circuit out. Run in 20.
This one I will give an arrow. I said this, that's a tick. This one I will give an arrow. Oh, for goodness sake.
Yes, about 1 run.
Because this one we're looking at the 5% here is the relevant part. So I want to draw attention to there.
Yes, about 1 run in 20, we'll get a red circuit out. But we'll also sometimes get green circuits, plastic bottles and spoilage. Fine, some of those sound vaguely useful. We'll see how we get on with them. Note that Mike has used separate inserters.
The extra zoom is actually quite good here because it makes the inserters even more obvious. So I'm just going to leave it zoomed in for now.
Reach out. This means that he can use stack inserters without the machine. Out. This is how we get. Note that Mike has used separate inserters for each output. This means that he can use stack inserters without the machine's outputs jamming up. But it's meant that he's needed to put these side belts. It's meant that he's needed to put.
Right, and I need to point at the side belts that I'm referring to. So let's do it. Is it 90 or minus 90 to point downwards? It's 90. Okay, cool. In fact, you know what? While we're zoomed in to this point, let's copy that, paste another one in here. Are you two lined up? I think you are. And we'll put you over on this belt. There we go. Contrast of blue arrow on Robasca soil is not great. That's true. That's why in theory that's why there's a white outline on it. But that is a fair point. Okay, let's do that instead then. Thank you. Good suggestion.
But it's meant that he's needed to put these side belts in as well because there's only room for 3 inserters along the side of the machine.
Let's put in another keyframe at the end of that, and we'll drag it down to there, and do the same on the other one. Drag it down to there. So then they're moving, and that makes them a lot more obvious.
But it's meant that he's needed to put these side belts in as well because there's only room for 3 inserters along the side of the machine. Using stack inserters allows us to fit a...
Right, and I'm going to zoom back out again at this point because I've been zoomed in for long enough.
Using stack inserters...
So back to full screen.
Using stack inserters allows us to fit a lot more resources onto the belts, and given that there's 4 different ones coming out here, that seems like a good idea. This recipe is nice and simple. It does work, but it's quite slow, and we can't really use speed modules very much on this planet due to the 30 megawatt limit imposed on us. In fact, to minimise power usage, each assembler has 2 efficiency modules in it to bring power... Each assembler has 2...
I'm going to put more arrows in at this point. Have them. I'm pointing at this one, so let's label that and copy, paste. You point to the other module like that.
It has 2 efficiency modules in it to bring power.
I'm going to need to zoom again on this one, aren't I?
Down to the 20% minimum. These machines do...
Yeah. Okay, so this is going to be a... I need to zoom in very quickly here because I haven't got much time. Over to the side there, so 2 efficiency modules in.
Bring power consumption down.
I think I want that to be slightly more like that, so we can actually see the assembly machine at this point. and then we'll also put in another highlight like this with a different thing this time rather than an arrow. No, we need that to be transformed. And then we can put this
down to the 20.
Excuse me. Oh, did I put it on this instead? No, I didn't. I did that. Okay, now we can put that over here on the minus 80%, like that.
Bring power consumption down to the 20% minimum. These machines do have 4 modules.
Right, I'm going to continue to zoom in on this because, again, we're looking at details on the machine, and if we have that there, then we can see it quite nicely.
The 20% minimum. These machines do have 4 module slots though, so we could add in a speed module and an extra efficiency module. And as long as we stick with tier 3 modules, that will keep us at minimum power consumption, while still getting a 50% speed boost.
This does not need arrows.
That would be a good idea at the time, and we have started to use that sort of balance in the future, but it doesn't make a huge difference. Instead,
this here, we need copy that and paste the effects onto here so we can do a zoom out.
Huge difference. Instead, we've compensated by using a significant number of...
Yeah, let's zoom out fairly early on in this clip, like that here. Back to normal.
In the future. But it doesn't make a huge difference. Instead, we've compensated by using a significant number of machines in order to bring production up to a useful level. These machines are a significant drain on our power. At various times, Assembler 3s have been using a full half of our available power, which is a bit alarming. The other problem with a recipe that produces lots of outputs is keeping everything in balance. As you can see, we currently have too many green circuits, which is preventing the red circuits from flowing. We also have far too much spoilage, so we're not using it for anything at the moment. However, Sophia has set up a system here to dump excess spoilage into a heating tower for disposal.
Let's zoom in on this bit.
At the moment. However, Sophia...
That's not 200. That was... Ooh. I should probably stretch this up further onto the screen above a little bit. Hello, Hydrogen. Yes, well, sort of. I'm streaming myself editing tomorrow's video because I was incredibly busy last week and also a bit hungover and haven't made any videos for this week yet. So there's been a little bit of a delay, and yeah, it'll. Oh, I've just noticed that pipe doesn't actually go anywhere. I remember that being fixed. Right, so yeah, so I'm streaming me making videos rather than me editing a stream, which is slightly different because I record fresh for the videos.
It's for anything at the moment. However, Sophia has...
Right, that's zoomed in a good amount, but it's in the wrong place. Let's pull that up to here. There we go.
It has set up a system here to dump excess spoilage into a heating tower for disposal. The splitter is set to prioritise putting the spoilage on the starboard output, meaning that we'll only ever see any on the port side where we're monitoring it if there's an excess and it backs up. If we ever see any there, it'll trigger the inserters to load the heating tower and burn off some of the excess. I'm not sure why he's done it like this.
Let's continue having this. Actually, if I cut that there, then I can just copy this and then paste the settings across all of these. That'll be much easier than trying to remember the numbers.
The inserters to load the heating tower and burn off some of the excess. I'm not sure why he's done it like this, rather than just running the low priority side directly into the heating tower like this. But the system he's built will also work fine, so there's no point in changing it, even though I just did.
Yes, Paloo, this is in Linux.
Something up to dispose of the excess green circuits, again just like on Fulgora, to allow the red circuits to keep flowing. And maybe we'll need the same for the plastic bottles as well in the future. We shall see. Still, that is red circuits being made, at least in theory. I guess we'd better go and look at the fish. Ingredient 3 is the infamous turbo fish.
No, this is Ubuntu Mate. I did use Mint for a while, but then I switched over to Ubuntu because Mate didn't seem... Mint didn't seem to offer that much.
We need some Harine gas, but that's okay. Tristan's pumping that in from the mines in the north.
This should be another zoom. I got distracted.
The actual...
Right, another zoom.
Fish breeds, which seems fairly simple. We need...
Let's just put that there, and that one. Here. I don't know how. Oh, yeah, that's a reasonable amount of time for a zoom to happen. In. Right, so I'll put that there because that gets everything. It gets catalytic chemical plants box, and it's got all of the interesting stuff for the recipe, I think. Yeah, there's nothing else useful down there. Not sure if it's the smell or the nutritional value, but they surely make you run very fast. Oh yes, Mike discovered that if he eats a turbo fish, he can actually outrun a rocket that's been fired at him, which is quite fun. Yeah, I'm happy enough with Ubuntu. I think when I first started using Linux, I jumped around between different distros quite a bit, trying to compare them basically. But now it's more sort of as long as I want a computer that works, so I've picked one and I'm just sticking with it. Fish breeding stage seems fairly simple. We need some harine gas, but that's okay. Tristan's pumping that in from the mines in the north. We need a source fish, not a fish source, or two, but it produces 3, so that seems sustainable. And then we need a protein shake. I've not seen any cows around here, so I don't think we'll be using whey protein, but I guess we're going to... Whey... Sorry. I have to trace that one back and see where it comes from. Okay. Protein shake. No, that. Okay, this is... Enough goes into this one that I can only just fit the whole thing on screen. That's quite impressive. Or there's enough waffle in the top boxes at least. Right. Where it comes from. Okay. Protein shakes are complicated. They require the plastic bottles that we saw coming out from the residue scraping. At least that's a solved problem. Then some beta carotene, also solved. Then it gets a bit harder. We need protein powder and calcium. It looks like the protein powder can only... Okay, need a more zoom on this one. Paste, select that, do that, and drag that upwards to there. I wonder, is that the same? It looks good. It'd be quite nice to actually do this. Yeah, so let's copy that. Remove effects, paste effects. There we go. Now the Factoriopedia background stays in the same place. That's much nicer. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know other people use Arch, others use Fedora, others use goodness knows what. But yeah, I started using Ubuntu because the friend who introduced me to Linux was into the Debian derived ones, and I haven't bothered to learn Red Hat or Arch or anything else, CentOS, Gentoo, whatever. I think I've repeated myself a little bit there, but never mind. It can only be made by processing a turbo fish. And this is about the point where Mike started to worry about production levels. If making a fish requires protein, and protein requires fish, is it going to be sustainable? Fortunately, 1 fish makes 5 protein, and 4 protein makes 1 shake makes 1 fish, so each time the loop runs, we'll gain 1 protein powder, or a quarter of a shake. It's not a lot, but at least it's on the right side of 0. Armed with this positive outlook, he started building, and here you can see his early proof of concept design. The fish are happily breeding up at the top, and then being turned into protein powder in the middle, which can be shaken up below. Mike informs me that this design is nicely to ratio, but unfortunately we can't really tell at the moment because of the shortage of plastic bottles coming through due to the excess of green circuits. He's even making the access keys in the middle as requested. This is a good proof of concept. The output is being produced as requested, but it's not big or powerful enough, and it's not being clever about machine use. Let's skip forward a week. This is much better. You can see the additional machines at every stage, and if we look more closely, you can see that most of the fish breeders have had their chemical plants swapped out for biochambers. This works really nicely because the biochambers can be fueled with Yeah, but turns out quite a lot of editing videos is just saying, yes, this is a bit we do need to zoom in on. Usually it feels like most of the time in the post-processing is spent putting in arrows, but this time it seems to be it feels like it's mostly in zooms. Nicely, because the biochambers can be fueled with the protein shakes as well, so we don't need to worry about an additional nutrient supply. Actually, I think that does one. So we don't need to worry about an additional chambers can be fueled with the I am going to arrow the protein shake fueling it. Oop, no, stay still. I want to do there. Transform and point it that way, I think, and put it there. That one. Be fueled with the protein shakes as well, so we don't need to worry about an additional nutrient supply. Yes, dramatic zoom, cut to turbofish entering through past door, through door.
An additional nutrient supply, and happily, due to the efficiency modules in there, the shakes last for ages, and the additional 50% productivity from the biochamber more than covers the fuel cost. So we end up with extra protein shakes in the end, and biochambers mean no electricity cost. They are entirely powered by the protein chains.
I think I'll zoom out soon.
Productivity from the biochamber more than covers ages, and the additional 50%
I think I'll zoom out here.
productivity. And the additional 50% productivity from the biochamber more than covers the fuel cost. So we end up with extra protein shakes in the end, and biochambers mean no electricity cost. They are entirely powered by the protein chains. A side note of this, however, is that whilst the protein shakes are consumed fully during the fish breeding process, the ones
Right, this is complicated.
protein shakes are consumed fully is that while
So while these protein shakes are consumed fully,
protein shakes are consumed fully during the fish breeding process, the ones powering
these ones are not.
fish breeding process, the ones powering the biochambers do return their plastic bottles for refilling.
Whoop. And
Plastic bottles for refilling.
the window closes here, so I better make the arrow disappear.
Filling. And with the current design side loading onto the belt, that
No, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? I think I can leave that.
That'll need to be swapped out for a priority splitter. Continuing to the south, we see that the assembler making the access keys has been replaced with a pair of forges because the access keys count as a military device. This gives us a free 25% productivity on them, which is nice. Device. This gives us a free and replaced with a pair of
That isn't what I meant to do. Undo. Right, what I meant to do was zoom from here
pair of
to here. Then look at the forges. To have a zoom rather than just being there from the...
assembler making the access keys has been replaced with a pair of forges because the access keys count as a military device. This gives us...
And then can we continue with that here? That zoom, excellent. And then we'll pan at this point to here. I quite like, yeah. I'm glad I've got the forges still in there, but I can show their stats over here. Now I could be fancy with this. In fact, let's be fancy. Let's demonstrate fancy because why not? So what I can do is if I ungroup that, I can copy this block of video, paste it in above here like that, and then we can. It's still zoomed in, so at this point I want to pan over to get that bit because that's the bit I care about. This information up here about the forge, and I'm not gesturing anywhere near it because of the whole mouse cursor situation. This bit here, the information about the forge. So now if I also put a crop onto this, I don't want an crop scale tilt, that's the one that's actually useful. I can then do a crop from the left like that, and a crop from the bottom like that. He says, sounding like a door opening. And then as we get into that bit, bing, it just appears like that on screen.
% productivity on them, which is nice. We top that up further with a module for a total of 35%. If you
Then we jump inside, so I guess we copy, paste, keep the zoom.
closely,
And look inside the forge like that. There we go.
5%. If you look closely, you'll also see there's a degradation module from Pelagos tucked in there too, because we don't want the quality buffer.
In fact, you know what I want? Actually, I have a better idea here. Let's adjust this so it's over there. and then keep this for a little while longer.
If you look closely, you'll also see there's a degradation module from Pelagos tucked in there too, because we don't want the quality.
Okay, so that is, I've moved the camera away, so we don't have that. We don't have that bit anymore. But up to the we do up to the end there. So I can take that. Can I just stretch it so lower the speed so I can keep that up?
There's a degradation module from Pelagos tucked in there too, because we don't want.
And now I can chuck in an underline. No, not with a wipe. Take the wipe away. I'll go back to the transform. That. You have that. And then I can put that underline on the equality over here, like that. Because that's the relevant bit at this point.
Pelagos tucked in there too, because we don't want the quality buff that the forges give. We'd like to have everything at normal quality, so the turrets and later buildings, which we'll talk about in another video, don't get confused. This is the sort of place.
Alright, and I think this is a good point to zoom back out again. So we'll go to there, where everything else is happening. Zoom out like that, go back to full screen. So it looked like this.
Talk about in another video, don't get confused. This is the sort of place I was thinking of when I mentioned the degradation modules in the last series. They're quite niche, but they're very useful when you need them. You can see that we now have a healthy supply of red circuits and bottles coming in, and so the access cards are heading out and going to feed the turrets that are capturing the vaults. Lovely. In fact, we've even made enough of them that they've backed up all. In fact, we've even made enough of them.
So I mean, the most time-consuming part of making videos is going in and putting all the little arrow overlays in on everything, like this.
They've backed up all the way down one of the belts. The perspicacious among you will remember that I've missed an ingredient. I got a little bit too excited about the fish.
This should be zoomed in as well. It really should. Because again, we're looking at and talking about a recipe. Now we've looked and talked about this one before, so it's probably slightly less vital. But even so, I think it's a good idea to show what we're talking about.
The perspicacious among you will remember that I've missed an ingredient. I got a little bit too excited about the fish, and so we better go back to where we make the shake. This recipe also requires calcite, and whilst there is some trickling through, this recipe also requires calcite. And whilst there is some trickling through, that's not what I call a healthy supply. Calcite is another resource which has a special Baskin recipe. Up here to the north, Sophia is bringing in the purple rock Haranite, along with some sulfuric acid, which is made in the traditional way from iron and water, and all of these are produced from voles. We can then wash the purple off the Haranite rock to get some normal rock. Okay, why not? And then
Should this show the recipe? Do we show the recipe? No, I don't show the recipe at any point.
For iron and water, and all of these are produced from voles. We can then wash the purple.
And I guess we
off
do
Haranite
show the
rock to get some
recipe
normal
because it's
rock.
these things across
Okay, why
here.
not? And then the leftover purple appears to consist of a valuable calcite, and a bit
Yeah,
of
let's-
sulfur, iron and water, and all of these are produced from voles.
Right, and at this point, I will zoom in
We can then wash
because we're now specifically talking about the Haranite processing over here, like that.
all of these are produced from voles. We can then wash the purple off this Haranite rock to get some normal rock. Okay, why not? And then the leftover purple appears to consist of a valuable calcite and a bit of harrying gas byproduct. I knew there was a reason we weren't filling the tanks completely. That's another one that needs a header tank. This is running a lot slower than I would like because of a major shortage of Haranite, and that's rippling through to basically everything that we care about on this planet.
That seems like a suitably dramatic point to zoom back out again. So putting another zoom here, returning to normal full screen, like
everything that we care about on this planet.
that.
And this shows the other difficulty of this planet, apart from the power cap. The valuable resources come from voles, and capturing and keeping voles requires a certain amount of effort, and at the moment is a bit of a struggle. We'll be looking into ways to improve our vault access quite soon though. Having that level of stability is going to be extremely important in making this planet able to look after itself, at least to a reasonable extent. That'll all be in a future video though, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. We'll be back streaming on Monday at 7:30 PM UK time, and maybe we'll have finished Rabatska by then. There's only one way to find out. I'll also be streaming something else on Wednesday, maybe another LucasArts adventure game, maybe another Factorio mod, we shall see. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. Okay, so there we go. That is the process of editing a video. I have to admit, I was hoping I'd get both of them done, or at least a little bit more done in the in this stream than I have. But I've spent quite a lot of time talking about it, and that's been good fun actually. It's made it a bit more interesting, even if it means I've been slightly less productive than I otherwise would be. And more importantly, or most importantly, it means there is a video ready to go out tomorrow to the to the supporters. There are one or two things left to be done here. The supporters credits thing here needs to be updated because I haven't updated it this week, and I tried to make sure it's as updated as reasonably possible. So I want to do that before I actually render the video. So that's something that I will do. I'll save that for tomorrow because it's not particularly interesting. It's just me sort of poking around in YouTube and Twitch and so on, pulling out all the lists of people who are supporting or subscribed or whatever, and then updating a PNG that can then be passed across in the background there. Then of course it needs to be rendered. I need to produce a thumbnail for it. I need to upload it, give it a description, put in time codes for the various different chapters, all that sort of stuff to turn it into an actually releasable video. But most of that is fairly obvious stuff, I suppose. You can probably imagine roughly how most of that goes, put it that way. So yeah, I think that's been I've quite enjoyed that. It's been a bit different from my normal streams, going in and playing the games, but I think having going in and talking through the process has been quite good fun. As I say, I do have another script that is ready to record and edit and so on, but I think starting that at 11 PM is probably a little bit foolish. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I want to do with this before, as part of the stream before I end it. And I've already got the adverts for what's going to be happening next on the channel up on screen, so I don't need to talk about that too much. There's deliberately a gap at the top because that's where the channel logo appears as a subscribe button on YouTube. So that's why everything is in a slightly funny position. And as we go forwards a little bit, this is rather suspicious and obvious gap at the top here. That's because YouTube will automatically put a thing in there, and we decided it looks a bit weird if I put the thing in there and then YouTube puts the logo on top of it as well, because you never get them lined up properly. Well, I never did get them lined up quite properly. Thank you. I'm glad you both found it interesting, Doopy and Ario. It's a relatively straightforward process, but it's one that has taken a certain amount of refining over the years, should we say? Hide subliminal messages behind the logo. Maybe I should just have it pop up saying subscribe for one frame every so often in the videos, and see if I can get people to be convinced that that's a good idea just by having it flashed at them. Right, I think that's probably actually quite a good place to cut. I would have been happy to carry on for another half hour or so because it is only 11, but I don't think. I think having taken 3 hours to make the first video, I don't think there's any point in. I don't think there's even any point in getting started on the next video because I won't get all that far into it, and you'll just see me doing the same sort of things over again, but with a different script. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should be doing. So as I say, I do need to do the supporters list. So that needs to be updated for whoever's resubscribed on Twitch and all that sort of stuff. So we've got, I think, I've got at the top, I've got people who've donated particularly spectacularly large amounts, and then people who are following on, who are regular donators on Ko-Fi, and then it's YouTube YouTube members, and then Twitch subscribers at the bottom. In whatever order Twitch puts them in as well. And my vague intention was to do larger text for people who need larger thanks because they've donated more. But it is a little arbitrary, but with a little bit of logic, but also with a little bit of logic behind it. So if you are one of these people, thank you very much for your support and contributions. It encourages me to keep the channel going. And then yes, there's making a thumbnail. That's another thing that needs to be done. So let me see. Thumbnail. Come on, load faster. Right. Video thumbnail. Here we go.
Thinking. So I tend to generally make them in... Oh, that's not the... did I not save after the last one? Bother. Okay, I'm going to have to go and rummage in the in Inkscape's autosaves, which is going to take me a little while. Yeah, I have a sort of piles of various bits of art that I've used on various thumbnails in the past. Actually, this one's relatively calm. It's just got some of my weird pie planet things and a load of science packs. If we look at the one from Series 3, he says, talking slowly while he goes to try and find it. Where is it? Yeah, I often tweak the artwork a little bit between series. So this was the Series 3 one, and some of the random bits of artwork that I've used on various different videos. I'm still really pleased with this Malibu bottle with the Malibu replaced with Pelagos, because you're making coconut rum on Pelagos. I enjoyed that. And then we've got the that's the galleon from Pelagos as well, and the fish and. Oh yes, we had some sad trees on one of the videos as well. So yeah, I've cobbled together various thumbnails with bits and pieces like that. Get away. But this one is supposed to look more like the other one, but I need to. Oh, that the can of fish was the surströmming, or however it's supposed to be pronounced. If you're suitably Swedish, that was more Scottish than Swedish. It's the fermented fish. The Swedes have it as an actual genuine delicacy, so they are real. Yeah, it is a real thing. You can go to Sweden and buy cans of fermented fish, and then you open it up and go, why on earth did I buy this can of fermented fish? But fermented fish was a big thing on Pelagos. It was producing a lot of our resources. Yes. So some thumbnails, yes. Occasionally titles. It largely comes down to whether I have how many ideas I have. So this video is titled Turbo Breeding. So I'll probably take a couple of the turbo fish and put them on there. Use them as maybe have 3 of them or something like that, or maybe I'll draw a family tree of them. That's not a bad idea, and then have some sort of suitable background on it as well. Things like, so what was, let's see, where's the title for episode 1? There is a insect buzzing around at me. Right, here we go. This one. So here's the one that went out last Friday. If you're a supporter, so yeah, I had a title. I found an image of the that's one of the Rabascan vaults. In case you don't recognise it, Rabaska in the background there, and then normally I do a screenshot as the background, but with the emphasis on hacking, I thought the Matrix wallpaper thing would be a nice change and something interesting and different. Normally I would do something like this, where I have some random piece of artwork that's appropriate to the stream, and then a slightly out of focus or a fairly out of focus screenshot from that. Again, vaguely appropriate for the stream in the background. So here we've got a black dragon as the artwork, with the diesel dragon itself taking off in the background behind it. There was one that was about cubes apparently. So yeah, I've got a cube. Oh, it's when we went in and upgraded the cube recipes for making the orange science on Vulcanus. So got that process in the screenshot in the background, but blurred so that it doesn't steal sort of the eye focus from the actual artwork. And then up here we've got a cube and a science pack. We had a crash. This one didn't A/B test very well, disappointingly. I thought the Windows crash screen, it's the right shade of blue and sad face and so on. I thought that was quite funny, but that out of the 3 different ones I tested, this one got about. I think this one got about 20%. This one got about 50%, and this one got the 30% remaining. So I've stuck with this one. Apparently, a big explosion is far more exciting than a Windows sad face. Again, here we had a couple of different titles for this one. This is back on Lignumis, so we had a mildly risque pun and then a sad tree here, because lots of trees are being chopped down. And then also we're getting attacks from the little wrigglers, so noise complaints seemed, because we're making too much noise, so noise complaints and an upset wriggler seemed like a good one as well. I forget which of those won in the end, but yeah, I'm A/B testing sometimes. Like this one, there was only really one good idea there, I see. So That's good. I'm to be fair, I'm the same with a number of other channels. There are channels where I will watch their videos basically as soon as I see them pop up. But I do still sometimes notice when the when the thumbnail changes, and I go, okay, they've got two different ones. I don't tend to then try and repeatedly refresh the page until I get back the one I like the most. Though I'll just click on whichever one I happen to see when it's the right time for me to watch a video. Oh yeah, I used 2 different cans of surströmming. That's what the can of fish was for. And it turned out that the photo was did better than the drawing of a can. It seems. Yeah, you need to. Technology Connections videos tend to be about an hour. So yeah, as you say, you need to find. You need to schedule them in a little bit. Although I do tend to play them at slightly faster than normal speed, and actually I'm not against dipping in and out of a video, so I might watch 20 minutes of it if I've got that much time, and then go off and do something else, and then come back and watch some more and see if I can remember what was going on beforehand. Oh yeah, a boat and a fish, and someone said they didn't like the AI artwork there, so I did another one with that's just using the sprites out of Factorio, which. I mean, there's a huge quality difference between the two in sort of image quality sharpness, but that one does feel, I have to admit, that does feel AI generated, which is fair enough because, well, it was. And I know people sort of disapprove of that, so I thought it'd be better. Maybe I should do a different one as well. And I think, to be fair, I think that screenshot, I think the A/B testing, that one actually did better. So, yeah, maybe people were put off by it. That's still one of my favourite puns in a title. I'm very happy with the Malibu and Coke there. But then, let's say a good pun is its own reword. Yes, I think this was. This was pretty much. These were pretty. No, this was pretty much the first one where I started doing the extra artwork in the corner of the thumbnail like that. Beforehand, it was just here was a screenshot in the background. And with the text over the top of it, screenshot, screenshot, screenshot. Actually, no, there's some artwork on that one. That was slightly unusual. But basically, it was just, here was a screenshot from the game with some text over the top of it. And I feel like the new ones are better. I'm not 100% sure whether they do better, but I think they look better. And that's an important step in the right direction, I feel. And yeah, puns are fairly frequent. I do like puns. I'm not going to deny it. Okay, I think this is probably a good time to finish. So thank you very much, everyone who's been watching. I hope you've enjoyed the insight into how I make videos. I don't intend to do another one of these streams, at least not in the near future. However, if I do get into a bit of a crunch again, where it's sort of getting into the beginning of the week and I haven't got videos made, then maybe we'll revisit this sort of thing in the future if I have to. We'll just see what that does for viewership numbers, I guess, and whether it seems like a good idea or whether it's just a fun once and I probably shouldn't ever do it again. But it's definitely been fun once. So yes, I hope you've all enjoyed it. It's been, as I say, it's been different. It has taken me quite a lot longer to edit the video than it normally does, but it's been a lot more fun doing it because I've been chatting with you guys, and it's been nice to sort of show it off and talk about it and that sort of thing. So yeah, let's end the stream here. Normally I say I'll go off and raid someone on Twitch. I don't really know what will be an appropriate thing to go and raid at this point. I guess I'll just find someone playing Factorio because that seems kind of appropriate if I can find which. Oh, it's this one. No, it's not. Which window has Twitch in? Oh, it is this one. Yeah, there's Twitch. Right. So yeah, we'll go off and find someone who's playing Factorio to raid. So if you're watching on Twitch, please hang around. We'll go and see what we can find. So I would like to filter by category Factorio. Finding another Factorio video editing stream it will indeed be very hard. So instead, I'm just going to find somebody who's actually playing it. Space Age Community Run. Sure, they're very early game. Let's see if we can find someone who's a little bit later on. There's a noob. That's not in English. This is part 20. It must be some way in. We'll go and drop in on Mr. Oh, is Bold Viking playing? He didn't appear high up on the list. So when all right, viewers. Who's got the most viewers? Neilhouse has, of course. Right. That's a name I've heard of. Cool. Why do these people get so many more views than me? It's not fair. Wow. This is quite interesting. So, looking at the top Factorio channels, we've got Neilhouse with 700 viewers, Colonel Will with 150, Bold Viking with 115, and then it's all the way down to 29, 13, 11. So, there seems to be you're either massive or you're tiny. That's interesting. All right, let's drop in on Bold Viking since somebody suggested him and see what he has going on. So yeah, as ever, thank you very much everyone who's been watching. I hope you've enjoyed the stream. It's been a bit different. As I say, I don't think I'll do another one of these unless I'm in another crunch position, but it's been fun to do once. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.